Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Cheated by Girls and Girls Went Back in Time Movie 3. Before we start, please go support Roberto Torres 769 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made, there will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Chapter 111 Hyoudou vs Hyoudou Evil. Hyoudou was fighting very seriously against Hyoudou Evil, and they clashed saws, but neither of them stopped. Hyoudou Evil saw Hyoudou's carelessness and mercilessly cut off his arm. Hyoudou's harem. Hyoudou-kun senpai Pei-san, they said, very worried. But they saw how it regenerates itself by drinking some of its blood and then launches itself again towards its counterpart. Hyoudou. Damn it, you regenerate too, don't you? He said while he saw an exact spot on Hyoudou Evil that Hyoudou took advantage of. Hyoudou mercilessly buries his saws in his chest, where Hyoudou Evil showed no expression. Hyoudou. This is my new ability, Irachi's lightning. He said as an incredible and painful electric shock hit Hyoudou Evil directly, who screamed in pain upon feeling such a shock. Hyoudou Evil only had his head down, but then he raised one of his saws and mercilessly cut Hyoudou in half, who spat out a lot of blood since he hadn't expected that. Hyoudou's harem. No, they said as they watched their boyfriend fall to the ground. Hyoudou Evil. This is the end for you, he said without emotion in his voice. Hyoudou Evil was about to kill Hyoudou, but then a rope grabbed his arm and pulled him towards the culprit, where he received a double kick from Yashi and Gamo. Nagatoro held a rope as he glared furiously at Hyoudou Evil. At that moment, Hyoudou Evil felt two spears of light on his shoulders and saw that they were Hana and Sona, who were glaring at him with great fury. Hyoudou Evil felt a chain ensnare him, followed by an energy blast with a touch of fire. Hyoudou Evil saw Sakura, who had black fire in her hands and was looking at Hyoudou Evil with great anger. He also saw Misaki, who had two energy blasts in her hands. Finally, he saw Orihara, who had him trapped with her chain. Hyoudou Evil only broke Nagatoro's bond and Orihara's chain and prepares to attack just like the others. Hyoudou was on the ground, staring at the grey sky, polluted by the war that is still ongoing. Hyoudou glanced to the side and saw someone he didn't expect to see again. Hyoudou. Stella, he said as he lost his transformation. Stella, without saying anything, just cuts her hand and blood comes out and Hyoudou, the baby. Stella. We'll see each other soon, Hyoudou-kun, but it's not time yet. She said with a smile as she disappeared. Hyoudou just smiled, but then he saw a person wearing a hood whose face was hidden. You know, I was in love too, but they controlled me to make me give up on that love. You don't know how envious I felt when I saw you and Stella in the past, but oh well, said the person. Hyoudou. Who are you? He said, waiting for an answer. You'll know in due time, it's time everyone knew who the Chainsaw Man is, she shouted and disappeared without saying anything. Hyoudou just watched him leave and fell unconscious. Hyoudou was in his consciousness as he walked, but then he heard a dog barking. Hyoudou looked down at the ground and saw a friend he hadn't seen in a long time. Hyoudou. Pichita, he said while hugging the demon. Pichita. I'm glad to see you again, but you need to stand up, your girls are in danger, she said with a serious expression. Hyoudou. What are you saying? He said worriedly. Pichita. I see you can already control my power, but you know that wasn't all of my power, it was only a part of it. This time we'll make a new contract. He said while still being serious. Pichita. I'll give you 100% of my power, but in return, once you defeat Lin Jr., I want you to eat his heart and I also want some nephews, she said with a smile. Hyoudou. But why would I eat that bitch's heart? He said seriously. Pichita. You'll know when you do it, so tell me, we have a deal, she said while looking at him. Hyoudou was serious but gave his answer. Hyoudou. I accept, he said as everything turns white and Hyoudou wakes up. Hyoudou felt a great power, but saw that his clothing was all black, like his shirt, pants, boots, jacket, everything. Hyoudou. I see this is all your power, Pichita. Well, let's finish him off. He said while pulling his cord and Hyoudou had something new. But Hyoudou's girls. Nagatoro was bleeding from all over his body and had very serious cuts. Orihara had both arms amputated as he glared furiously at Hyoudou Evil. Hana was missing a leg and an arm. Sona was unconscious while she had a huge cut. Sakura was missing both legs. Yashi felt a hole in his stomach as he felt his life slipping away. Gamo was limbless and only awaited death. They were all defeated, waiting only for death. Hyoudou Evil simply raised his saws to kill them and they just closed their eyes to await the attack, but nothing happened. Then they heard a psychopath's laugh and they all saw the culprit. It was Hyoudou, but he had something very special and terrifying about him. Upon seeing him, they all felt very scared and small, but at the same time they felt very safe. Hyoudou Evil didn't know why, but he felt afraid of him. Naoto, in the blink of an eye, ran at incredible speed towards where his girls were, who were just staring at him. Naoto cut a small piece of his hand and made each of them suck his blood. They didn't know why, but they did it and they felt their wounds heal, and those who were missing limbs grew them back again. Naoto, though it wasn't noticeable, smiled, as he didn't know if his plan would work. Thus Naoto launched himself towards Naoto Evil, who prepared himself, but then he felt cuts all over his body. Naoto Evil saw his arms fall as well as his legs, so he regenerated and launched himself, but not as fast anymore. Naoto. Thinking, it seems that when he regenerates he loses speed and power, let's see how long he can last, he said while mercilessly cutting him in half. Naoto Evil only regenerates, but he loses a lot of speed and power, so Naoto repeats his same attack. Naoto. Let's finish this, he said as he prepared his saws and buried them all over his stomach and chest. Naoto Evil simply raised his saw to cut it, but the moment he touched it, his saw broke. Naoto. Irachi's lightning. He said as a very painful electric shock hit Naoto Evil directly, who only screamed in pain as he felt his regeneration trying to heal his organs. Naoto Evil could no longer regenerate, and Naoto turned his leg into a saw, then grabbed Naoto Evil and threw him into the air. Naoto mercilessly cuts him into pieces until he is nothing but ground meat. Naoto fell to the ground as a shower of blood rained down on his body, and he lost his transformation and fell unconscious. His girls rushed to help him, while none of them noticed a hooded person watching this with a smile. Elsewhere. Roberto, Big Red, and Office were seen watching the Lincoln and Friends time capsule. Big Red. Do you think it will work? He said while looking at Roberto. Roberto. I'm not sure, but what I do know is that if we don't do it, she'll win. He said as everyone nodded. Office. Let's not waste any time, I want to be with my alpha, she said with a superior smile. Roberto. You haven't even slept with him yet and you're already calling him alpha, he said while she just had her head down, and without thinking she punched Roberto in the stomach. Roberto was just kneeling while Office pouted and looked at Roberto. Big Red. Okay, enough games, let's begin. He said as they began the ritual to improve the bodies of Lincoln and his friends. Chapter 112 Ryota vs Ryota Evil. The sounds of Ryota and Ryota Evil's punches could be heard. Ryota dodges a kick from Ryota Evil and punches him in the chest, but Ryota Evil punches him in the face. Ryota felt a liquid on his lip and saw that it was bleeding. Ryota's harem. Ryota-kun Sansama, they said worriedly. Ryota. Not bad, he said while curling into a ball, leaving his harem and Evil himself confused, the latter having seen something interesting. Ryota starts jumping in his ball mode and gives Ryota Evil a strong blow to the face, followed by another to his back, and finally another to his forehead that leaves Ryota Evil on the floor. Ryota thought it was enough, but then he saw Ryota Evil's wounds heal. Ryota. Damn it, he said seriously. Ryota Evil, at great speed, grabs his left arm, where Ryota tries to get away, but feels an enormous squeeze on his arm that tightens around his arm. Ryota. Aiaiaia, scream of pain. All of Ryota's girls were very worried, especially when they saw Ryota's broken arm. Ryota saw his arm and ripped it off so it wouldn't be a problem. Ryota. Plan B, he said while searching the ground and saw a piece of rusty metal and without thinking, he plunged it into his severed arm. Thus Ryota lunges towards Ryota Evil and punches him in the face, followed by another with the rusty metal. Ryota wastes no time and crushes him again and again, while Ryota Evil tries to get Ryota off him, but Ryota shows no mercy. Himeko. You can do it, Ryota-kun. She said excitedly and thrilled to see her boyfriend like this. Ryota Evil performed a sweep, managing to remove Ryota, and then Ryota Evil jumped and delivered a blade kick that destroyed Ryota's right eye. Ryota felt a lot of blood coming out of his non-existent eye and saw Ryota Evil performing a dance where he gained a lot of speed and began to beat Ryota, who tried to defend himself, but Ryota Evil was too fast. Ryota. That's enough. He said as he managed to grab Ryota Evil by the head and gave him a powerful headbutt that made both Ryota and Evil's foreheads bleed. But Ryota Evil heals without problems and takes Ryota's other arm and crushes it, but Ryota, without thinking, buries the piece of metal in Evil's stomach. Ryota. Let's see if this works, he said while kicking Evil, making him let go, and Ryota kicked him in the face, but Evil grabbed his leg and slammed him to the ground. Ryota Evil. Take this. He said as he got on top of Ryota and started punching him in the face, followed by another and another. Ryota was getting beaten up by Evil, but Himeko kicked Ryota. Evil, however, didn't make Ryota get off of Ryota. But he felt several chains on his body and saw Rimi, Inaho, Itsuki, Runa and Sayaka, each of whom had a chain made of fire, water, ice, iron, metal, and earth. The 5 of them were able to force Ryota Evil off of him. Ryota was bleeding from his nose and mouth, and his eyes were black from the severe beating he had received. Ryota Evil heard several gunshots and saw Mary and Midori shooting at him. Ryota sensed blue and purple fire, which belonged to Kurari, who had blue fire, and Ririka, who had purple fire. Finally, Ryota Evil was frozen all over his body by Yumemi and Yuriko, who froze Ryota Evil, but he just broke the ice. Ryota Evil. Damn it. He said as he lunged towards Yumeko and the others and began to beat them all up without exception. Ryota was on the ground, humiliated, trying to stand up to help his girlfriends, but he couldn't. Pathetic, said a hooded person. Ryota. What are you saying? He said weakly. Are you going to let your loved ones die for a cheap copy? You are the strongest physically, even Issei admires you for your great strength, he said while still looking at him. You know, you are the descendant of one of the strongest sumo wrestlers, you are a descendant of Raiden Tamamin, one of the strongest men in the world, he said seriously. Show who Ryota Suzui is, the strongest in the world, he said as Ryota fell unconscious. Ryota was on his mind as he walked. Ryota. Where am I? He said, looking around. Ryota saw a huge bed and saw a muscular guy with many women on top of him. Ryota. Who are you? He said, seeing the guy standing up. So you're my descendant, well child I thought we'd never meet, but oh well, I won't make a long story short, my name is Raiden, and I will give you all my strength and power, he said simply. Ryota. How will you do it? He said while looking at him. Raiden. Just take my hand and I'll do the rest. He said as Ryota, a little suspicious, did so, and Raiden turned into a light and the women who were asleep disappeared. In the real world. Ryota Evil had Yumeko by the neck while she bled from her eyebrow and lip. Then he felt a light illuminate the entire area and Ryota Evil saw Ryota's body which shone like the sun. Then Ryota felt a powerful blow to the face that sent him flying. Yumeko felt she was in someone's arms and saw Ryota, but he had changed. She had red tips on her hair and red lines on her body. Ryota summoned a box and gave it to Yumeko. Ryota. Share this, he said as he put Yumeko on the ground. Ryota walked towards Ryota Evil, who stood up and they both looked into each other's eyes. Ryota. Release, he said, touching his chest, and many muscles began to grow. Ryota felt a lot of pain, but his body lit up in green, and Ryota felt his body was normal. Ryota took a deep breath that left some angels and fallen angels breathless, but they recovered. Ryota made a very large slalom where a large draft was visible. Ryota. Do me a favor, die, he said as he punched him in the chest at great speed, making Ryota Evil bleed. Ryota Evil saw a hole in his chest that wouldn't heal, and Ryota curled into a ball and launched himself at Ryota Evil in that way. Ryota Evil felt Ryota's great strength destroying his body with each blow he received until Ryota Evil was so badly injured that his wounds wouldn't heal. Ryota. Take this, he said, concentrating, and delivered a sumo punch, simple but effective. Ryota Evil raises his arms to defend himself, ready to receive the blow. Ryota. Yutagarasu, he said as he performed his strongest attack. Ryota ripped Ryota Evil's arms off and then stabbed him through the stomach. Ryota. And another one, he said with his other hand, that pierced his chest and removed his heart where Ryota Evil turned to ashes the moment Ryota crushed his heart. Ryota saw this and simply went to help his girlfriends who were recovering thanks to the potions he gave them. Elsewhere. Roberto. Shit, it didn't work, he said while looking at Lincoln's capsule, which showed no signs of life. Office. Seriously, not again. She said as she tried again but Big Red touched her shoulder. Big Red. We've already tried 10 times but nothing, he said seriously. Roberto. I hate to say it but it's impossible to bring Lincoln back. His friends are already recovering and alive again, but Lincoln is someone special. He said seriously. Office. I'm sorry, Alpha, but we couldn't bring your best friend back. She said, lowering her head in disappointment. So they left the capsules behind, but they didn't see that some people saw everything. Chapter 113 Tadano vs Tadano Evil. Tadano and Tadano Evil were fighting with bladed weapons. Tadano had a machete and Tadano Evil a sword. They clashed weapons where neither stopped, where sparks from both could be seen. Tadano saw a weak point in Tadano Evil and cut off his arm, but in a matter of seconds it regenerated. Tadano. Shit, it regenerates, he said, summoning a shield to protect himself from a cut by Tadano Evil. Tadano Evil summons a chain axe and spins around with the same weapon, and Tadano receives a cut from behind. Tadano. Scream of pain as he receives another cut on his leg. Tadano Evil summons a machine gun and fires at Tadano, who protects himself with his shield, but it slowly begins to destroy itself. Tadano. Damn, his bullets are really strong, he said while, having no other choice, he threw the shield at Tadano Evil, who simply hit it and destroyed it to pieces. Tadano summons a bazooka and fires at Tadano Evil, who simply moves at great speed, dodging the deadly shot. Tadano. Thinking, this guy can see my movements and he can also regenerate, I have an idea, he said, summoning a special box on his back. Tadano Evil summons some very strong metal gauntlets and launches himself towards Tadano, who was met with a powerful blow to the face that knocked out 3 teeth. Tadano grabs Tadano Evil by the arm, who is left confused. Tadano. My turn, he said as he took out the box behind him, revealing it to be an electrical power box which he had plugged in. Thus Tadano electrocuted Tadano Evil, who suffered from severe electric shocks. Ren. This is one, he said while cutting the throat of a fallen angel with a light knife. Najimi. Yes, but Tadano-kun was also affected, she said while noticing how Tadano was also affected by the electric shocks. Tadano Evil summons a machete and cuts his ear, causing him to lose it. Tadano. Aya, scream of pain as he, without wasting a second, summons a harpoon and pierces his stomach. Tadano Evil was about to give him another cut with his machete, but someone hit him, and it was none other than Makoto, who had come to Tadano's aid. Makoto. Nerus, take Tadano away now. He said very seriously. Nerus carried Tadano while Tadano was injured from the wounds inflicted by Tadano Evil. Nerus. Rest, Tadano. You'll see that my beauty will make that copy of you fall. She said as she went to help Makoto. Tadano was on the ground remembering his training with Roberto, but then he saw someone with a hood watching him. Show us who you are, said the hooded man. The Tadano I knew during the Molotov genocide was very cruel. Are you weak because a cheap copy is defeating you? Said the being. Remember when those bitches graped you? Use it. You know you want to kill. Remember the cruel and ruthless Tadano you were. He said, disappearing. Tadano remembered those moments and stood up as he watched Makoto and Nerus, already tired from fighting against Tadano Evil. Tadano let out a loud shout that everyone heard, and they saw Tadano with a weapon that was completely unknown to them all. So Tadano reloaded and shot his copy, who turned around and saw Tadano with a never-before-seen weapon. Tadano. Die you bastard, he said while firing a powerful shot with that weapon. Thus Tadano Evil summons a flamethrower, and both attacks collide where neither gains nor loses ground. Tadano. Shit, he said while giving more power, but then Najimi, Komi and Kawai approached Tadano and created some attacks where they helped Tadano. Tadano's attack was gaining ground with the help of his girlfriend and friends, and Tadano Evil no longer knew what to do. He tried to escape, but ropes caught him. It was Keat and Nin who had him, using special ropes to prevent Tadano from escaping. They all screamed, and Tadano Evil was hit by the attack, his body turning to ashes and disappearing completely. At the end, Tadano Evil had died, while Tadano fell to the ground unconscious from delivering that never-before-seen attack. The girls quickly produce a phoenix tear and heal Tadano, who gets to his feet and continues fighting the few remaining enemies. In a secret laboratory. Lisa looked very angry because they lost some copies of her. Lisa. Miserable people, well, it's good that I have Plan Z in case everything goes wrong, she said while looking at some special people. One was a brunette girl with 2 pigtails, like Irina. Another one had a gas mask. Another group consisted of soldiers wearing black gas masks with red details. Lisa. We just have to wait, she said while her right eye had a special color. Elsewhere. The child could be seen walking in the same darkness. Hello, is anyone here? Clyde, Rusty, Zach, Liam, Stella, Issei. Is anyone here? He said, walking. Then the boy saw some people he never wanted to see, and when he saw them, he started to run. Wait, Lincoln, said a blonde. It was none other than Lincoln who was running away from his family. While they were running to catch Lincoln and explain things to him. Chapter 114 Saji vs Saji Evil. Saji was using his armor and his Vitra flames to fight Saji Evil, who had the same abilities as him. Saji Evil began to spin, creating a tornado of black flames that engulfed several angels and fallen angels. Saji created an attack to destroy the tornado, but that wasn't enough, as the tornado didn't suffer any damage whatsoever, and worse still when it began to launch attacks of electricity and fire. Saji dodged the attacks and struck some so they wouldn't hit Issei, who was still fighting Diodora. Saji. I'll have to use them, he said seriously while looking at the tornado. Saji summons an incredible number of Vitra snakes, and once they are ready, he launches them towards the tornado. Saji watched and waited for the tornado to dissipate, but then he saw Saji Evil fighting the snakes that had bitten him, and he took advantage of the situation. Saji summoned black fire in his fist and lunged towards Saji Evil, who was focused on fighting the snakes. Saji. Take this, he said, hitting Saji Evil's chest, and fire surrounded Saji Evil. Saji snaps his fingers and the snakes cling to Saji Evil's body, and once they are attached to him, Saji snaps his fingers again and they explode, with Saji Evil taking the full force of the damage. Saji saw a smokescreen, and when the smoke cleared, Saji Evil was seen with very serious injuries, but he regenerated, surprising Saji. Saji Evil summons a blade of dark energy and lunges at Saji, and Saji Evil mercilessly cuts off both of his arms. Saji. Aya, scream of pain as Saji Evil kicked him, leaving him on the ground. Saji Evil was about to deliver the final blow, but his harem appeared and began to fight against Saji Evil, even though they knew they couldn't win. Saji. Damn it, I thought my Vitra explosion was going to work, he said while watching Raruko get hit by Saji Evil. Saji saw a hooded figure to the side, looking at Saji. Well done, half-star, you could have gone straight to failure, said the hooded figure. Tell me, don't you feel humiliated that some cheapskate defeated you? Ha, did you forget Roberto's training or what? Said the hooded figure. You can do it, you were very important to Lincoln, prove that you are not a failure in life, said the hooded figure, disappearing. Saji remembered how useless he felt for not helping Lincoln when he could have, when he saw Lynn's proud face as she watched her own brother engulfed in flames, Lily's cries, and the recording those damn Chandler and Bobby made with Lily. This time he won't let the girls he loves die because of his cowardice and weakness. Saji stood up but fell unconscious due to his injuries. Vitra. Comrade, wake up, Vitra said to Saji. In a dark world. Saji was seen walking, but then he saw someone. You're finally here, said a dark-haired boy. Saji. Who are you? He said, looking at the boy. My name is Hikuji and you are my descendant, he said while looking at him. Saji. I'm a relative of yours, he said, looking at him. Hikuji. Look, I see you need help, so let's make a deal. He said, looking at him. Saji. And what is it? He said, looking at him. Hikuji. Well, I'll give you the skills and powers I gained from overworking my body, but only if you promise me something. He said seriously. Saji. And what would that be? He said, looking at him. Hikuji. You will love your wives, not the beaten ones, and you will be faithful to them, he said seriously. Saji. You have a deal, he said while holding out his hand to shake it. Thus they shake hands and Hikuji becomes a light that enters in the real world. Tsubasa was seen badly beaten and on the verge of death while being held by Saji Evil, whose fists were covered in blood. Tsubasa. Goodbye Saji, I love you, she said, closing her eyes as Saji Evil was about to deliver the final blow, but then music was heard. Saji Evil was about to hit Tsubasa, but someone arrived in time and hit Saji Evil, sending him crashing into some rubble. Tsubasa was about to fall to the ground, but someone picked her up princess style. Tsubasa weakly opened his eyes and saw his savior. Tsubasa. Saji-kun, she said while looking at him. Saji had a different appearance, as he had about 6 lines on his face, more specifically from his forehead to his ears, and his eyes were yellow. Saji. You did a good job, forgive me for not defending you, I'll take care of him, he said while cutting his hand and blood came out of it and made Tsubasa take some of his blood. Tsubasa felt his muscles regaining strength and his wounds healing. So Saji helped each of his girls heal them, but he blushed because Tomo had her chest uncovered and her breasts were exposed. Saji takes off his shirt and covers his girlfriend with it, then goes towards Saji Evil, who looked at Saji with great annoyance. Saji Evil had black fire in his hands and lunged towards Saji, but Saji assumed a battle stance, lunging towards Saji Evil and saying a few words. Saji. Blood technique, blows of war, he said, throwing punches in the air. Saji Evil was confused but felt a rain of blows on his body, even though he wasn't hit by Saji. Saji Evil had a lot of holes in his body, but still he lunged towards Saji, but he swept aside and said. Saji. Blood technique, airy sweep and Vitra kick, he said as Saji Evil fell to the ground, but felt a powerful kick to his face that felt like 3 teeth came out of his mouth. Saji Evil saw his wounds and regenerated, but he still felt those wounds in his body. Saji Evil created his fire tornado again, but instead of retreating, Saji ran towards it and said. Saji. Vitra needs your flames, he said as Vitra accepted. Thus Saji had black flames in his hands, and he screamed. Saji. Blood technique, war blows x20, he said as a rain of blows hit the air where Saji Evil's tornado suffered damage. The tornado tore to pieces and Saji launched fireballs, but Saji's punches destroyed them as if they were paper. The tornado was losing power, and Saji Evil was slowly suffering the blows. Saji Evil felt Saji's blows and at the same time felt Vitra's flames where Saji Evil felt his body being destroyed. Saji. Final technique, destruction and chaos, he said while putting all his strength into his right fist and launching himself towards an injured Saji Evil. Saji Evil tried to defend himself, but Saji punched him through the stomach and Saji Evil felt all his organs being destroyed. Saji Evil. Aya, he screamed as he felt his bones, nerves and organs break. Saji Evil fell to the ground, dying, while trying to regenerate, but it was useless. Saji. Goodbye, he said, throwing a fireball that destroyed Saji Evil's body. Saji went with his girlfriends to take them to a safe place so they could rest. In a place where there is nothing. Lincoln was seen running while his family chased him. Lincoln. Stay away from me. He said while running and crying. Lola. Linky, wait. She said while continuing to chase him. Lana. We just want to talk, she said as she continued running. Lori. Please, little brother, listen. She said as she ran. Rita. Baby, please don't go, she said while a large trail of tears ran down her face. Chapter 115 Shido vs Evil Shido. Several kilometers away from the chaos, the rubble of buildings and houses could be seen, and gunfire could be heard from different directions. Shido was hiding in a ruined building while reloading his weapon. Shido. Damn, he has perfect aim, he said while looking at his shoulder bleeding from being shot. Shido Evil was just staring at the building while reloading, but Shido saw that and used that moment to shoot him. Shido dodges it and looks again, but he didn't see him. Shido. Where is he? He said while aiming but received a shot in his shoulder. Shido screamed in pain and aimed, but he didn't see him. So he ran, but received another shot in his arm. Shido looked down and saw Evil Shido, who in an instant became invisible and his presence disappeared. Shido. I understand, he can become invisible and make his very presence disappear, he said while feeling another shot in his knee which hurt him a lot. Shido summons special bullets and reloads his weapon. Shido aims and concentrates too much. Shido fires, but when he hits some rubble, it emits smoke as if it were a smoke bomb. Shido thought that would prevent Evil Shido from seeing him, but he receives 2 shots in his shoulders. Shido was on the ground badly injured and saw Shido Evil approaching him with a bayonet in his weapon. Shido Evil awaited his end, but heard a gunshot and saw Origami, who had a gun and shot Shido Evil. Shido Evil becomes invisible and hides his very presence where Origami invokes his power and unleashes a powerful beam that destroys even the rubble. Shido was on the floor as he watched his harem defend him, while some of his girls looked around to find Evil Shido, who was hiding because of his ability. Shido looked to the side and saw a hooded figure. Shido. Who are you? He said while looking at the guy who started talking. I don't know either, I still don't understand why I'm not in hell for what I did, but it doesn't matter Shido, that's all you have, he said while looking at Shido. You let a cheap copy defeat you? You're one of the strongest in Issei's army. He said while looking at him. I know you can handle him, unleash all that hidden potential you have, show who Shido Itsuka is, the strongest sniper in history, he said as he disappeared. Shido was motivated by the words of that being, so he stood up and his eyes changed to emerald green. Shido watched his wounds heal on their own at a great speed and his energy return. Shido looked around and saw his harem riddled with bullets, especially Nia, who tried to write in her book but was met with a hail of bullets. Shido saw everything in slow motion and saw Toka injured and about to be shot in the head by Evil Shido, who watched as he moved at great speed, but Shido saw it as very slow. Thus Shido runs towards Toka and saves her as well as his entire harem. Toka. Shido-kun, she said while looking at him, but he didn't say anything, summoned a knife, and disappeared from his harem sight. Shido Evil looked around for a girl or even Shido himself, but felt his hand being cut off at great speed. Shido Evil saw Shido, who had green eyes, and looked at him. Shido Evil pulls out a machete and tries to cut him, but Shido moves at great speed and makes 2 cuts in his chest. Shido Evil searched for him with his eyes, but then he felt his sight disappear as Shido cut his eyes. Shido Evil desperately swung his machete, hoping to kill Shido, but Shido plunged his knife into his throat. Shido Evil fell to the ground, spitting up a large amount of blood, and clutched his neck in the hope of stopping the bleeding, but he died from excessive blood loss. Shido's eyes returned to normal, and he spits out a large amount of blood while coughing and regaining his normal breathing. His girlfriends rushed to his aid as he fell unconscious. In nothingness. Lincoln was seen stopping as he realized that running would do no good since he saw and realized that he wouldn't get anywhere by running from his family. Lincoln looked them in the face while they looked at him, still with tears in their eyes. Lincoln. Tell me, what do you want from me now? Wasn't what you did to me enough? I was hoping you'd reconsider because of the bad luck incident, but no. He said while the Louds didn't say anything. Lincoln. I'm already dead, just like you wanted. So what more do you want from me now? How miserable do I have to be for you to be happy? He said as tears streamed from his eyes, but he still looked them in the eyes. The Louds were just crying, but with all the courage they had, they spoke. Lori. Lincoln, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm the worst older sister ever. I let Ronnie bully you, just like some of my friends, over something stupid. I'm sorry, I understand the hatred you have for us. And if you want to hit me, go ahead. I don't care, because the pain I caused you won't compare to the damage we did to you. She said on her knees while crying. Rita. Son, I no longer have the right to call you that because of what I did. I'm the worst mother in the world. When I looked into your eyes and you gave me that smile, I swore that I would protect you from everyone day and night, but I did the worst thing a mother could do. I not only separated you from your real parents, but I also made you suffer. I remember the days I didn't feed you because of that foolishness, and I still remember how I saw your suffering firsthand. So all I can say is, I'm sorry," she said while kneeling and crying. "Luna. Lincoln, I don't even have the right to look at you after what I did. I'm so sorry. I made you suffer, I hurt you so badly I damaged your spine, I made you deaf from playing too loud, and I let Sam grape you while I masturbated watching. What kind of monster does that? I remember you were my motivation to become the best singer ever, always encouraging me without asking for anything in return. I'm sorry, bro, for everything," she said crying as she remembered all the harm she did to Lincoln. Lincoln, I don't know how to start. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for the harm I caused. My pranks hurt you both physically and mentally. The itching powder caused serious skin damage. I made you suffer every single prank on prank day because of the bad luck. I almost destroyed your face like my cement pie. I'm sorry for everything I did," she said crying. Linky, I'm so sorry. My damn jealousy made you suffer because of me. I made many of my friends abuse you. I gave you the worst beatings anyone could receive every day. I left you without food for days, you almost died. I hurt you so much that I didn't realize my stupid jealousy made me hurt the most wonderful person I've ever known. I'm so sorry Linky," she said while crying on her knees. Linky, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. I made many of my friends and acquaintances grape you, I beat you for every bad painting, I came up with that brilliant idea of crucifying you and your friends while I watched from the front row as you burned, just like your friends, waiting for your screams of agony, but you never screamed, you only smiled. I don't know what I was thinking, I let my damn jealousy take over, while I just let it blind me," she said crying while on her knees and covering her face. Lincoln, I'm so sorry for everything I did. I took large amounts of your skin to perform rituals. I realized that you were the only one who stood by me through it all. I can't believe the damage I caused, all for a stupid little thing when I never did anything wrong. So, Lincoln, I'm truly sorry for the harm I caused," she said while revealing her eyes for the first time, which were blue. Lucy was on her knees, crying uncontrollably. Linky, I've never said this before, but I'm sorry okay? I'm sorry. I realized that you were the only one who stood by me despite my attitude. You were the first to see me as your princess, but when I realized it, those idiots who called me pretty and beautiful were never sincere like you were. I'm truly sorry for all the harm I caused, especially when I cut you with a hot knife," she said while crying, and it was very noticeable because of the smudged makeup as she knelt down. Lincoln, I'm truly sorry. I didn't do anything to stop the bad luck, not the revenge we had on you because of the video. You have no idea how many times I tried to change my mind and help you, but the fear of failure and rejection made me act like Judas, and I never lifted a finger to help you or even give you anything. My animals were more loyal to you than to me, and now I understand why. I hope that someday you can forgive me," she said, crying as she felt all her emotions come out and let out all that pain. Lincoln was speechless. He could sense the sincerity in their words, but it wouldn't be easy to forgive all the harm they had done. Chapter 116 Issei's Harem vs Evil Issei and Resurrection. Evil Issei looked down on everyone with disdain, as did Issei's harem. The fallen angel tried to stab him, but with a mere glance, he destroyed the fallen angel's body. Rias watched this and couldn't ask Issei for help since he was fighting Diodora. Vali lunged towards Issei Evil where both clashed blows. Vali had his white emperor armor, while Issei had the red emperor armor, but the green gems had a blood red glow with violet. Vali divides Issei Evil's power, but he realized something. Vali, I cannot divide his power, he said as Vali receives a powerful punch that destroys his armor. Vali fell to the ground and saw Zenobia and Arena launch themselves towards Issei Evil, who easily dodged their attacks. Issei takes both holy swords and exerts force. Zenobia. Let him go, she said while trying to take Durandal away from him. Arena threw a ring of light at him, cutting off both his arms, but Issei Evil regenerated at great speed. Asia, in her armor, launches several arrows, but Issei Evil blocks it. Penemu threw 2 light spears at him, but Issei Evil caught both spears and threw them back at Penemu, who dodged them with great difficulty. Gabriel summoned a golden armor that commanded respect from everyone and lunged towards Issei Evil, grabbing him by the waist. Issei Evil was confused, but then Gabriel spun around several times, leaving Issei even more confused and slamming him to the ground. But Issei Evil quickly regained his composure and lunged at Gabriel. Gabriel saw Issei Evil's great speed and expected a punch, but instead saw that Issei Evil had a chain on his arm. She saw Ra stop Issei evil, and Rias took advantage of that and launched a destructive attack along with Akeno using a powerful beam. Issei had injuries, but he regenerated as if nothing had happened, surprising everyone. Asia, in her armor, lunges at Issei evil and punches him in the face, but Issei evil grabs her by the neck and begins to strangle her. Asia tries to get rid of Issei evil, but then Issei evil feels gunshots in his back and sees that Mitsuda and Motohama are responsible, shooting him. Issei evil punches Asia in the stomach, knocking her unconscious and destroying her armor in the process. Rias. He's very strong, she said, but saw Issei receive a blow from Diodora that destroyed his armor. Rias. Issei, she said, running towards her boyfriend, but evil Issei kicked her, sending her slamming to the ground and creating a crater. Zenovia took advantage of this and slashed Issei evil across the chest, but he grabbed Zenovia by the head and headbutted her hard, knocking her unconscious. Ingrid had 2 spears of dark energy and threw them towards Issei, but he caught them and threw them back. Before he could throw them at Ingrid, he sensed a water snake and a fire snake, realizing it was Sona and Ravel who had him subdued. Kaneko in her adult form, like Kuroka, launched blue flames at evil Issei, but he destroyed Sona and Ravel's attacks and struck Kaneko and Kuroka's fireballs. Rias. At this rate we'll lose, she said, watching as Arena, Alice, Hisako, Murayama, Kadis and Aika shot at Issei evil, who was protecting himself from the bullets. Rias saw one of Issei's gems on the floor and picked it up, remembering that in his past life Issei did this, but with Vali's gem. Rias takes the gem and says. Rias. Please, great Sekiryuutei, help me win this fight to prove I am worthy of being one of Issei Hyoudou's wives, and to show that I am not weak. She said as the gem glowed brightly and a dragon mark appeared on her right breast. Issei's gem glowed, and at that moment, Rias felt a great pain in her arm, seeing that she had Issei's glove while the gem in her hand glowed. Rias was enduring hell, feeling horrible pain, but this was nothing compared to what Issei endured in his past life. Rias would endure this and more just for Issei. Drag. The power of the Red Emperor has been accepted by Rias Gremory, said the gem now in Rias' hand. Rias shone so brightly that Seraphol and Yusaka covered their eyes because of the intense light. Wider, Seraphol and Yusaka were fighting against Issei evil, who was dominating them well, but they all saw Rias glow, and when it disappeared, they saw Rias wearing the Red Emperor's armor. Rias felt Issei's power within her, and it was incredible, especially when he used his power of destruction. Rias, at incredible speed, launches herself towards Issei evil, delivering a powerful blow with the power of destruction, causing Issei evil's armor to crack severely. Issei evil spits out a bit of blood and they both launch themselves at each other while combining blows. Ravel approached Asia and gave her a phoenix tear, healing her. Upon seeing Rias struggle with Issei's power, Asia launched herself at evil Issei, wielding Farder's power and a turbo boost that amplified her abilities. Thus Asia joined the fight where both of them had Issei evil at bay, who could not keep up with the 2 girls. Ravel also approached Zenovia, who was unconscious, and gave her a phoenix tear. When Zenovia woke, she saw both girls fighting. Zenovia. Damn it, I want to help too. Why the hell am I so weak? Issei, you think I have potential? You think I'm strong enough to defend others? So if I'm weak, it's an opportunity to win. Then I'll do it. She said while seeing a piece of Issei's armor, and she couldn't think of a better idea than to swallow one of the pieces of Issei's armor. Zenovia felt a sharp pain in her stomach and began to scream as the color of her eyes changed to green. Zenovia screamed as she felt the power of the Sekiryuutei within her. Zenovia shone just like Rias, and everyone watched Zenovia's transformation. Drag. The power of the Red Emperor has been accepted by Zenovia Quarta, he said while Zenovia wore the Red Emperor's armor. Ignorant Issei. Zenovia felt a great power in her body, so she launched herself towards Issei evil, who had to dodge a slash from Zenovia, who fused the power of the Red Emperor with a turbo, which increased her power. Zenovia was cutting down Issei evil, who could barely put up a fight against the 3 of them together. Then a magic circle with the number 1 in the center appeared in Issei evil's ear. Lisa. Use a final attack, evil Homo sapiens. She said as the magic circle disappeared. Evil Issei takes several steps back and unleashes an attack as many of his augments are heard. Issei evil, having prepared his attack, launches it towards the 3 girls who likewise launch an attack. Both attacks were the same. Neither retreated nor advanced. Evil Issei makes more boosts that cause the attack of the 3 to lose ground. The 3 of them were giving it their all to win, but then Akeno arrived along with Leona, Fiona, Clara, Alice, Arena, Hisako, Murayama, Kadis, and Kateria, and together they launched an attack that merged with the attack of the 3 girls. Issei evil saw his attack recede, so he, with all his power, increased his attack, advancing little by little. Thus, all the girls in Issei's harem unite and launch an attack where Issei evil loses ground. Issei, who was recovering a little after the fight with Diodora, saw this and noticed that evil Issei had a magic circle with a number 1 in the center, and this gave him power. So Issei takes out his dragon wings and joins his girls to win. Issei. Sorry I'm late, girls. He said while his turbo power was at its maximum and he launched a powerful attack that evil Issei saw as his own attack lost power. Issei's harem and Issei. They screamed while giving it their all and thus the attack of evil Issei was destroyed and evil Issei was destroyed without the possibility of returning and regenerating. This is what a large hole in the floor looked like but no one felt Issei evil's power. And so Issei and company fell to the ground, exhausted. Issei. I'm tired, he said as he fell unconscious, still recovering from the fight with Diodora. They were all in the same state after fighting the Issei copy and so Issei's allies went to him to help him and his companions. The nothingness. Lincoln was seen saying nothing as he pondered the situation. His family, after so long, apologized to him after all the damn harm he suffered because of them. It was not a decision to be taken lightly. Lincoln sighed and gave his answer. Lincoln. If you're truly sorry for the harm you caused, you should apologize to my friends who suffered the same as me, especially Stella, and to everyone you hurt and harmed with your actions. I won't forgive you, but I still appreciate it. He said with a smile. Rita. Why? She said as her tears continued to flow. Lincoln. Because if it weren't for you guys, I would never have met a great friend who supported me and never turned his back on me when he found out about my bad luck. He said with a smile. Lincoln. So Louds, I hope you get forgiveness from those people because you'll never get mine, even if you beg for it. He said as he left, leaving the Loud family devastated. At that moment, Linka grabbed his shoulder and he turned around expecting a punch but instead saw Linka shed a torrent of tears. Linka. We understand, we even hate ourselves for the harm we caused, but we want to do one last thing for you, she said while looking at him. Lincoln. And what would it be? He said while looking at her. Liberty approaches and sees him. Liberty. We will give you our souls so that you may return to life along with our powers and you may defeat Lin, she said while looking at him. Lincoln. How is that possible? He said, looking at them. Lucy. We will sacrifice ourselves for you, she said as she approached. Glory. We will merge our souls so that yours can be repaired, but that comes at a price. She said while looking at him. Rita. And that price is that we will disappear forever, she said while looking at him. Lincoln. He said, looking at them. Lewin. To help you understand better, we will disappear from the world, both immortal and this one. We will never be able to return, reincarnate, or be revived. We will be like dust, and you will never be able to see us again. It is the only thing we deserve. She said while looking at him. Lincoln. Are they willing to give their souls so that I may return? He said incredulously. Lola. That's what a family does, she said as they all turned into a light. Linka. Before I disappear forever, I want to fulfill my last wish, she said while grabbing Lincoln's shirt and giving him a passionate kiss that made Lincoln blush intensely. Lincoln was about to say something, but Liberty grabbed his shirt and gave him a passionate kiss that made Lincoln blush even more. Liberty. Goodbye Lincoln, she said with a smile while hugging him. Linka. Save the whole world from Lin, she said with a smile. Rita. You were always my greatest pride, even though you weren't my son, she said with a motherly smile. Lincoln decides to fulfill the Loud's last wish, which is to return the hug, while the place turns white and a great glow surrounds Lincoln. In Juan the horse's laboratory XD. The bodies of Clyde, Rusty, Zach, Liam and Stella appeared more colorful as they showed signs of life. Then the machine where Lincoln's body was kept, which showed no signs of life, suddenly began to make a sound, signifying that Lincoln was alive. Then the janitor who was cleaning the place saw Lincoln's body and realized. Janitor. It can't be, Master Lincoln Loud is alive. He said while running at great speed. What the janitor didn't notice was that Lincoln suddenly opened his eyes as he looked at the viewer. Chapter 117 Amadeus Base. 2 days later. Our protagonists were seen in a battle helicopter at a base heavily guarded by Amadeus soldiers. Flashback 2 days earlier. Issei was seen talking with Kik and Gunther. Issei. So they found a base near here, he said, looking at both of them. Kik. Yes, when we tried to attack we saw that it had a magic barrier and that the guards wouldn't let anyone near, he said seriously. Gunther. Even being inside the base blocks your powers, since we tried to use them, but couldn't, he said seriously. Issei. I see, well, do you have a map of the base? He said as they both nodded and showed a map. Kik. The main entrance is a large, heavily guarded hole, measuring 100 meters underground. Then it has 3 floors, each one different from the other, and that's all we know, he said seriously. Issei. I understand. Well, I initiated Operation Amadeus. He said as they both looked at Issei. Both. Operation Amadeus, they said, confused. Issei. I guess I picked up a little of Lincoln's crazy plans, he said as they gave a small smile. End of flashback. Our protagonists were seen in a warplane while armed with weapons such as pistols, machine guns, and grenades. Issei. Attention guys, the only entrance is the large, heavily guarded hole. There's no way in. We won't be able to use our powers. Understood. He said as they nodded. Issei pulls out a radio and speaks. Issei. Rocky, you guys protect Amadeus base. Don't let anyone in to defend the base. He said seriously. Rocky. Understood, he said as all of Issei's soldiers, as well as demons, angels, fallen angels and yokai, were seen protecting the base while killing the soldiers trying to enter. Once they reached the point of the large hole, our protagonists were seen descending with the help of a spy hook. Dodano. Let's begin Operation Amadeus 007 style, he said as everyone got off. Once they got down, they were met with a hail of bullets. They had bulletproof shields, and the Amadeus soldiers and rebels were trying to kill them. Issei saw the soldiers reloading bullets and shouted. Issei. Now. He said as no one wasted any time and they began firing at the soldiers. Hyoudou fired as he watched the rebel soldiers fall into the void. Dodano threw his shield, which had a chain attached, and used it like a medieval ball. Shido, with his perfect aim, had no problems as he shot them in the head so they wouldn't be a nuisance. Our protagonists were descending, but they saw tanks emerging from the entrances and they barely managed to dodge the tanks' shots due to their limited space. Issei. Damn, if we had our powers we would have already finished them off, he said while seeing a soldier's bazooka. Amadeus takes it and fires it at the tank, destroying it. They all see this and understand, and they start grabbing bazookas and firing at the tanks and missile launchers that are firing at them. So they went down to a great depth, removed their hooks, and got down safe and sound. Issei takes out his radio and speaks. Issei. Girls, it's safe, come down, he said as the change was heard. At the base entrance, another battle helicopter is seen, and Asia, Kaneko, Yotsuba, Origami and Nagatoro are getting out, descending with the help of a rope with a hook. Well, in the case of Kaneko and Asia, they came floating in slug armor, and since they had that, well, let's go back a day. Flashback to the day before. Issei was seen talking with his friends and explaining the plan to them. Issei. So you, Yotsuba, Origami and Nagatoro, will go down once we touch down to search for prisoners or civilians. He said as the three nodded. Asia. Issei-san, I want to go with them too, she said while looking at him. Kaneko. Me too, she said while looking at him. Issei. I'm sorry girls, but I don't want you to get hurt. Besides, if you go, your powers will be blocked once you enter. It's too dangerous for you to go. He said while looking at them. Asia. And why are Origami-san, Nagatoro-san and Yotsuba-san going, but we're not? She said, making a small pout. Issei. The three of them have extensive training and practice with weapons and medicine. I know they want to help, but I don't want any of them to get hurt. He said as he approached them and kissed them. They just had their heads down and walked away, but a blonde girl saw everything and followed them. Issei then continues and explains the plan in detail. Asia and Kaneko sit on some rubble, but someone grabs them by the shoulder. They both turn around and see a girl. Asia. You're Kendall, right? She said, looking at her. Kendall. That's right, and they want to help Issei, right? She said while sucking on a lollipop. Kaneko. Yes, but she's right, we wouldn't be of any help if we go since the base will block our powers, she said while her head was down. Kendall. I can help you, follow me, she said as they both followed her. They arrive at a small warehouse and see two tarpaulins covering something. Kendall removes them, revealing two slightly damaged slug armors. Kendall. I'll give you these armors if you help me get a date with Clarence in return. She said, while both of them looked confused. Kendall. With kick, she said as they both understood and nodded. Thus Kendall began repairing the slug armors with the help of Asia and Kaneko, who were his assistants. End of flashback. Kaneko. Thinking, thank you Kendall-senpai, now I can help Issei Naya. She thought with a smile as they continued descending. Asia. Thinking, thank you so much Kendall-san for giving me something to help Issei-san. She thought with a smile. So they arrived and saw the dead soldiers, so they began to explore the place in search of prisoners, but they saw some cells that held monkeys. All. Monkeys, they said, confused. But the boys. They began to advance and saw a large number of soldiers. These soldiers saw them and began to fire. Issei. Guys, throw the grenades. He said as they nodded. So they threw the grenades where they exploded, killing the vast majority. Issei and his companions went outside and began firing at the surviving soldiers, taking the Amadeus's grenades to replenish their own. Issei. There are too many of them, he said as he saw several tanks and armored vehicles ready for action. Issei and company do not back down and continue. Then Ryo is seen with a gun and starts shooting. Ryo. Sorry I'm late, he said while firing a gun and looking like a lunatic. Ryo mercilessly fires at the tanks, which suffered damage from his bullets just like the others. Thus, after an attack of bullets and cannon fire, great destruction was seen, and Ryota was seen being bandaged by Shido. Ryota. That damn soldier stabbed me in the back, he said while looking at his injured shoulder. Shido. Relax, and thanks Ryo for the ammunition you brought. He said while Ryo just reloaded his weapon. Ryo. It was nothing, he said simply. Issei. Well, we've reloaded our ammunition, so let's keep going since there are more floors to go, he said as they nodded. Issei takes out a radio and calls. Issei. Honey, they found the seal that takes away our powers, he said while Ria's voice could be heard. Rias. Yes, but we have a problem, she said while Issei answered. Issei. Which one? He said, confused. Rias. It's extremely well protected, she said as a brightly shining seal was seen surrounded by several soldiers and invaders. Issei. Damn it, well tell the guys to shoot and attack without mercy, he said as she agreed. Issei saw several soldiers wearing lab coats and they started shooting, so the soldiers took cover. Shido saw a dead soldier, then took the grenades and threw them at the soldiers. An explosion was heard and they went outside where they saw the vast majority of soldiers dead. Nobody noticed that a soldier wearing a lab coat was alive and he fired, hitting Tadano squarely. Everyone. Tadano, they said, watching as Tadano fell to the ground. Issei lunged at the soldier and killed him by crushing his head. Then they saw Tadano's body change into a monkey where he had his weapons. Issei. The shot turned him into a monkey, he said speechlessly, just like the others. Then they saw Tadano take a great leap and climb the cables of the base, and he fired into the air where several sniper soldiers fell dead. Futuro. We have to find a cure for Tadano, he said seriously. So they continued on and luckily found a jar containing a soldier and a lab coat, which they gave to Tadano, who returned to normal. Tadano. What happened to me? He said while touching his head. Naoto. You've turned into a monkey, he said while helping him to his feet. Tadano. Great, he said as they walked along with the others. With Asia and Kaneko. They freed the people who were trapped and killed the scientists and soldiers who were guarding them. Asia. There are too many prisoners, he said while shooting at some soldiers. Kaneko. That's true, and those monkeys look like test subjects for experiments. She said while watching a scientist shoot at them, but because they were wearing armor, it didn't affect them. So they kill the scientists, but then they see some jars and they take them. With Rias. Rias and her companions had killed the soldiers and they saw the core that sealed their powers. Rias. Fire. She said as they began firing and launching rockets at the core, but it was no use since it didn't even get a scratch. Rias. It's going to take us a long time to destroy it, honey, hang in there. She said as she watched some soldiers take a huge drill and begin their work. With Issei. They had reached the deepest part of the Amadeus base and saw a large factory where many robots were under construction. Issei. So this is where the robots came from, he said while looking around. Ryota. I'm surprised Lin has all this, he said as they continued walking. Then they heard a laugh and saw that it was Alan with his machine gun. Issei. Damn, it's a Tama on steroids, he said as Alan started shooting. Everyone dodges it and Alan moves at great speed, hitting Shido with the bullets and sending him flying. Issei. Shido, he said while stabbing Alan, but it has no effect and Issei dodges before Alan can hit him. Shido fell unconscious and Futuro threw grenades at him, but this had no effect on Alan, although it was noticeable that his body was turning red. Tadano. He has great resistance, he said while shooting at him, but Alan shoots where he dodges. Ryota shoots at him, but Alan starts throwing grenades, one of which Ryota takes, injuring him. Saji throws a grenade at Alan, who screams and falls to the ground. Issei. Damn, he's so, but before they could finish, they saw Alan stand up, but part of his face was robotic, as was his chest. Ryo. This has to be a joke, he said as he resumed his barrage of gunfire. They kept shooting at Alan, and Tadano came up with an idea. Tadano. Issei, Futuro, and Saji distract Alan for a moment. He said well they didn't understand but agreed. Alan heard gunshots and saw the three boys who shot him. He lunged towards them, but Tadano, at great speed, placed a chain of grenades around his neck. Tadana. Die, he said, removing the pin from a grenade and throwing it at Alan's fence. Alan tried to get out of the way before it exploded, but it was too late and the grenade exploded, causing the ones around his neck to explode and inflicting great damage on him. Issei. "We did it," he said as a large smokescreen appeared, but they saw Alan again, but his body was damaged and he said something that no one understood and he fell to the ground and his body exploded, leaving only his machine gun. So Issei takes Alan's machine gun and they continue onward, seeing a glass elevator and going up where it takes all the protagonists. Issei and company arrived where they saw a commander from Lin. Issei. "So you're Amadeus," he said, looking at an old man who was laughing at everyone, and a hook grabbed him and took him to a robot. So he was in a big blue robot and it started firing missiles aimed at the protagonists who with difficulty dodged them. "Hyoudou. The missiles are fast," he said as he watched the robot's cannon begin to launch electric balls, but Issei and the others shot at the robot, which suffered little damage. They continued firing where the damage was severe. So they continued until finally Amadeus's robot was destroyed, but Amadeus smiled and a claw picked it up and took it to another purple robot. A machine gun emerged from the robot's chest and began firing, but they dodged and returned fire. Issei. "Damn, the ammo is running out," he said while looking at how little ammo he had left. So they continued, and Amadeus's robot pulled out a saw, which it advanced on, and the protagonists barely managed to dodge. "Hyoudou. Resist," he said while throwing a grenade that does little damage. Hyoudou tried to pull out another grenade, but he saw that he didn't have any grenades left. Hyoudou saw that his machine gun was out of bullets and saw that the saw that Amadeus threw was returning. So Hyoudou pulls out his gun and shoots the robot. Tadano saw that he was out of bullets, so he pulled out his pistol and started shooting. "Shido. Dodge the saw," he said as he dodged the saw that was coming back. Thus, everyone dodges the saw and they continue firing until Amadeus's robot cannot withstand the boy's shots and is destroyed. "Ryota. We did it," he said panting. Amadeus smiled and a clam picked him up and put him in another robot. So Amadeus has another robot and this one seemed to have more resistance than the others. "Saji. This has to be a damn joke," he said as he saw that his machine gun was out of bullets. Thus Amadeus began to launch various attacks such as lasers, gunshots, and a lethal laser beam. Saji, Ryo, Ryota, Hyoudou, and Shido all ran out of bullets and dodged them. Issei and Tadano also ran out of bullets and they too dodged the bullets. These robots were already exhausted and saw more robots emerging from the ground, but these were small and emitted a laser beam, though not a lethal one. Then a magic circle appears in Issei's ear. "Rias. Honey, good news, we broke the seal," she said, seeing that the drill pierced the core and destroyed it. Issei. "Perfect, I'll give it to you really hard in bed as a reward," he said while Rias blushed but also smiled. Issei. "Guys, we can use our powers now," he said as everyone smiled broadly and immediately used their powers. Hyoudou. "Perfect," he said, summoning his spear and burying it in the ground, and several spears emerge from the ground, destroying the robots that appear from the ground. Saji launched black fire and threw it at Amadeus's robot and it slowly destroyed itself. Shido summons his rifle and shoots at Amadeus, but his crystal was too strong. Ryota lunged at the robot and began to hit it, destroying it. Issei launched a very powerful attack, throwing it at the robot without hesitation, destroying it. In the end, Amadeus's robot was seen destroyed and inside, Amadeus was seen trying to get out. Then a voice is heard from the loudspeakers and says. "Voice. The base will enter self-destruct mode within 1 minute," said the voice. So Issei made a magic circle and they disappeared. But Tadano stops him, goes to Amadeus's robot, pulls Amadeus out tied up, and everyone leaves. Tadano. "We have to interrogate him, this bastard must know where Lin is," he said as everyone nodded. Rias and the army left the base, while Leisha and Kaneko left in the same way, taking many people who were prisoners of war with them. Chapter 118, the end of the game. 2 years later. During that time, both the factions and Issei had liberated 100% of the human world, which was left with much damage due to Lin's attacks. Many countries lost their population and now have fewer inhabitants, especially men who died defending their country against Lin's army. It was very easy for them to discover Lin's secret spots thanks to Amadeus, who cooperated by enduring much torture at the hands of the mass. Finally, all that was missing was the supernatural realm, where they first went to heaven and saw many fallen, especially women who had been abused by Lin's soldiers. Michael and Gabriel wept upon seeing so many fallen angels, but Issei comforted Gabriel, who wept in his arms. Roberto promised to create an artifact to restore the fallen angels to their former glory. So they just took it upon themselves to defeat the few remaining Lin soldiers, who weren't many. Afterwards they went to Azazel's territory where they saw many fallen as slaves, and many nightclubs where many fallen were working as prostitutes or dancers on the orders of the soldiers. They all took it upon themselves to defeat Lin's soldiers, especially Futato and Tadano, who witnessed the sale and purchase of underage children being sold as slaves. Hyoudou had a fit of rage and killed a large number of soldiers, just like Hyoudou. Finally, Azazel's territory was liberated, where that world of terror for the fallen arrived. Then they went with other mythologies such as the Yokai, and the same thing happened with the fallen ones. Destruction and lust everywhere. The same thing happened on Olympus, where there was much destruction and much enslavement of the gods. After a while, the Gremory territory was visible, where both Rias and Sirzechs had faces of disgust and disbelief. In their territory there were many sculptures of the number 1, several centers of slavery where they saw women, a center of various things for Lin soldiers. They saw several demons running while Lin soldiers shot at them, killing them like animals. They saw women giving birth and the babies being devoured by the invaders as food. Rias couldn't take it anymore and cried when she saw that, so Issei approached her and comforted her. "Rias. This isn't the territory I remember," she said crying. Issei. Thinking, Lin loud, "I will never forgive you." He thought, filled with fury. Issei. "Rias, if you don't want to see the territory like this, we'll have to attack," he said as Rias nodded and they advanced. Thus began an attack where no one showed mercy to Lin's soldiers. The women and men were freed and taken to a safe place where both Rias and Sirzechs attacked with great fury. At Gremory Castle. Lin was seen drinking from a glass and holding a spear. "Lin. It's a pretty cow spear," she said while turning the spear. Cow. "Go to hell, bitch," he said while badly injured and spit in her face. Lin just smiled and wiped herself off. Lin. "Well, great words for the leader of the heroes. It's good to die saying what you think," she said as she spun Cow's spear and cut off Cow's head, which fell to the ground and his body fell to the ground. Lin. "Father, why don't you give our guests a proper welcome?" she said as Lin Sr. entered, holding Venelana by the arm, who looked badly beaten. Lin Sr. "Of course, this bitch couldn't handle my level 3 penetrations," he said while throwing Venelana to the floor. Lin. "Don't worry, father, if you bring me the head of one of the mass, I'll give you all the hexy demons there are," she said as Lin Sr.'s smile formed. So Lin Sr. makes a magic circle and leaves the castle where all the mass and their armies were. "Roberto. You damn bastard, I can't believe you're alive, but I'll take care of killing you," he said as he lunged towards Lin Sr. who smiled and summoned a sword that had many eyes and said. Lin Sr. "Lunar breathing, first form, dark moon," said while Roberto is seen being cut off at the arms, losing them. Roberto and the others were shocked to see how the strongest god lost his arms from a cut. Then they saw that Lin Sr. had 4 more eyes and could see them all. "Tiba. Guys, you go in, the others and I will take care of it," he said as Lin Sr. saw this and ran at a beastly speed and said. Lin Sr. "Lunar breathing, second and fifth forms," he said as sharp crescent moons emerged from the sword. Ardor hits all the half moons and sends them in another direction, just like Tadano. Tadano. "You all go in, Futuro, Roberto, Ardor, Biku, Kiba, Zenobia, Irina, Isel and I will stop him," he said as he watched Roberto regenerate his arms and transform into his god mode and launch himself towards Lin Sr., who is doing his moon poses. So they enter, but upon entering they are met with a hail of bullets and they counterattack. Rias. "Guys, you go ahead, we'll get distracted," she said as they nodded. So they are onto the second floor of the mansion and see someone they never wanted to see in life. Issei. "Lisa," he said very seriously while she had an arrogant smile. Lisa. "Yes, that's me, and please don't say my name," she said with a smile while taking out some fans. Issei. "We're in trouble," he said while summoning his armor. Shido. "I'll kill her once and for all," he said while shooting her in the head, but it regenerates. Lisa. "Nice try, my turn," she said while blowing on her fans and several pieces of ice flew towards the boys. Ryo takes out his chains and spins them, creating a circle of fire that destroys all the pieces of ice. Naoto transforms into a chainsaw, but when he breathes in the ice vapor that Lisa released, he spits out a large amount of blood. Naoto immediately lost his transformation and coughed up a lot of blood. Naoto. "Guys, don't breathe, the steam from that ice can destroy your lungs," he said as they nodded. Ryota. "Issei, you go to where Lin is, we'll take care of it," he said as Lisa summoned some ice dancers who blew ice, but Ryota destroyed them. So Issei goes to where Lin is, arriving at the main room where Lin Jr. and Marie Loud are. Lin Jr. "I've been waiting for you, Issei," she said while Issei just had a serious expression. Issei. "Lin, I didn't expect someone like you to cause such chaos. It's not for nothing that your last name is Loud, which means madness in Spanish," he said seriously. Lin. "Indeed, well let's finish this. You know you're going to lose, right?" she said with a smile as she took off her leader's jacket. Issei. "I don't think so," he said, summoning his Diabolos dragon and looking at Lin seriously. Lin. "Yes, I believe it. You know where the invaders are coming from," she said while looking at him. Issei. "Lisa created them," he said seriously. Lin. Wrong, they're an alien race, natural enemies of the people of Mars. It was easy to control them, and guess what? If you don't destroy the invader's nest in 1 hour, the Queen of Venus will awaken, and you know what will happen on Earth once she's awake. She said seriously. Issei. There will only be chaos and destruction, he said seriously. Lin. Indeed, bad luck, she said with a smile. Issei summons a communication circle and calls someone. Issei. Searches, you have to go to Earth and find the invader's nest. You have to stop your mother's development quickly. He said as Searches nodded and hung up. Lin. How sweet, Issei. You know, if you were on my side and had left that loser, you would have been the best chef in the world thanks to my father. You would have had the best women for your harem, and I would have loved to be your wife. I would have included all my friends from the sports club too. She said while looking at him. Issei. I'm sorry, but none of you are my type, you know. He said as Lin just sighed and pulled out Kuoh's spear. Lin. Let's finish this, she said while moving at a beastly speed where Issei is surprised and receives a cut in his abdomen that makes him spit blood. Issei. Shit, he said while touching his wound. Brag. Partner, she's on another level. It's the first time I've seen that speed. He said while giving Issei some power-ups. Lin. Wow, you didn't die after that cut, not bad at all. She said as she prepared to cut off his head, but Issei unleashed his turbo power and made her take a few steps back. Lin. That damn power, cancellation. She said as her eyes turned red and Issei's turbo power was sealed. Brag. Partner, the turbo power has been sealed, he said as Lin prepared the spear to cut Issei's neck, but a flying kick sent her a few steps back. Issei saw that hooded person, and he produced a phoenix tear that completely healed Issei. Issei. Thank you, he said as he stood up. You haven't changed much, Issei, he said as he took a step forward. Lin. It's been a while, hasn't it? She said while looking at the hooded figure. That's right, and don't say my name, I'm ashamed to have your blood, she said while removing her hood, revealing who she was. Issei was speechless, and Lin just glared at that person with annoyance. Chapter 119 Lin Sr. vs Swordsman and Surprise. At the entrance, the boys could be seen, and they rushed towards Lin Sr. Thanos summons a machine gun and Hyoudou's spear, and both launch themselves towards Lin Sr. Lin Sr. Lunar breathing, first stance, dark moon, she said as she made a vertical cut and several half moons headed towards them. Zenobia summons her red emperor armor and strikes the crescent moons, sending them flying in other directions. Lin Sr. Lunar breathing third form. Mortal moon of abandonment, he said while creating a whirlwind where Ardor, Irina, and Kiba were absorbed by the whirlwind, and they made an effort to hit the crescent moons, but one of them cut Kiba's left hand. Kiba. Aya, scream of pain while touching his missing hand. Irina almost had her right leg cut off by a half moon, but Biku hit the half moon. Biku? How can that bastard use that breathing technique? He said while watching Lin Sr. being shot by Tadano, but he regenerates. Roberto. I don't know, but I'll do this, he said while raising his arm and saying. Roberto. Mortal punishment from the gods, he said as the sky turned green with a blue hue and Lin Sr. said. Lin Sr. Moon breathing 16th form moon rainbow, he said while making several downward slashes destroying everything in his path, including Lin Jr.'s houses and statues. Roberto was unable to dodge Lin Sr.'s attack and was cut on his chest where his symbol is located. Roberto. Aya, scream of pain while bleeding from the chest. Roberto. Thinking, was able to respond to my punishment from the gods, he thought seriously while looking at the cut. Lin Sr. Moon breathing second form moonlit pearl flowers, he said, making several wavy cuts where several crescent moons appear, and Zenobia made several energy cuts where she destroyed some crescent moons, but Hyoudou received a cut in his stomach. Hyoudou. He complained about the cut but laughed when he saw what Lin Sr. did. Tadano was not so lucky, as Lin Sr. cut off his right hand. Tadano. Aya, scream of pain upon seeing his severed limb. Roberto transforms into his god mode and says. Roberto. Isel, use the Miku Hyoudou. Zenobia and Irina, fight Lin Sr. head on. Biku and Ardor, unleash your best attacks. Kiba and Tadano, combine your attacks and destroy Lin Sr.'s defense. Hyoudou, approach Lin Sr. and use your special ability. He said as they nodded. Roberto. I'll have to call them so they can help us and give me time to make my attack stronger, he said, making a magic circle. Zenobia and Irina approach and begin a sword fight against Lin Sr. Zenobia. We will kill you, she said as she clashed her Durandal against Lin Sr.'s sword, which had many eyes. Irina. What a horrible sword. She said while summoning rings of light and trying to cut Lin Sr.'s neck, but he moved at great speed. Lin Sr. Moon breathing fourth form, Moonlit Lake, he said as a lake appeared below Arena and Zenobia, and several crescent moons appeared from below, and Arena and Zenobia hit the crescent moons, but Zenobia had to protect Arena, who was going to be cut in half, and Lin Sr. sends both of them flying. Note: the fourth lunar position is unknown, but I put it this way. Israel had an Aztec sword and cut off Lin Sr.'s ear, thus beginning an evenly matched battle. Kiba. Birth of swords, he said, burying his sword in the ground, and many swords appeared where Lin Sr. saw several swords appear from the ground, and they had intentions of stabbing him, so he said. Lin Sr. Lunar breathing fifth form cursed vortex ghostly moon, he said, making several horizontal cuts destroying the swords, but he received several shots where Lin Sr. saw Tadano with a machine gun. Lin Sr. Thinking, those two are a damn problem, and that cheap god is putting on his best attack, he thought seriously. Then he receives a powerful blow to his back, seeing Bhikkhu with his staff striking him, and Ardor cutting his leg. Lin Sr. You miserable wretches. He said as his limb regenerated. Zenobia and Arena recover from the impact, and Zenobia tries to attack again, but Arena stops her. Zenobia. What's wrong? Do we have to keep attacking? She said seriously. Arena. Didn't you realize? He can regenerate his body, but when I was about to cut his throat, I realized something. She said seriously. Then they saw Bhikkhu being sent flying in the company of Israel where they were. Israel. What you're going to say better be worth it, because we're getting the beating of our lives, he said while looking at his dark circle under his right eye, lost because of Lin Sr. Arena. He dodged a cut I was going to give him to the neck, so we have to behead him, she said seriously. That's how they understood and saw Hyoudou fight 1 versus 1 against Lin Sr. Lin Sr. You're too weak, why don't you just die already? He said while trying to prepare to take another stance, but he staggered and received a stab wound from Hyoudou. Hyoudou? You noticed, right? My blood is like chloroform to my enemies. It took a lot of work to make sure my blood doesn't affect my allies. He said while watching Lin Sr. stagger. He then lunges at Lin Sr., who regains some of his focus, and their weapons clash, causing Lin Sr.'s weapon to crack and shatter into pieces. Hyoudou. Take this. He said, burying his spear in Lin Sr.'s neck, but Lin Sr. delivered a powerful blow that sent him flying. He then removed Hyoudu's spear and broke it in two. So Zenobia and Arena tell everyone about Lin Sr.'s weakness, and they understand and begin attacking Lin Sr.'s neck, but he retaliates. Lin Sr. I'm tired of you guys. Moon breathing, 11th form, eternal moon tornado. He said while creating a tornado with several crescent moons, sending several of the boys flying. Bhikkhu suffered a cut to his left arm, losing it, and Ardor lost some fingers due to the crescent moons. Zenobia and Arena fought back, but were sent flying, as were Kiba and Tadano. Hyoudou buried his spear in the ground and summoned another where it strikes the crescent moons. Roberto created a shield protecting himself. Lin Sr. Where is that slave? He said as he felt a stab in his stomach. Israel. I'm behind you, Argentinian, he said as he raised his sword and cut Lin Sr. very deeply. Lin Sr. Damn it. He said while grabbing him by the shoulders and headbutting him. Israel cried out in pain and was about to strike again, but Hyoudou plunged his spear into his eye, causing him to release Israel. Lin Sr. They don't know when to give up, do they? Moon breathing 16th moon rainbow form, he said while making several descending cuts, destroying Hyoudu's spear and cutting off some of the fingers on his left hand. In addition to suffering that damage, Hyoudou also suffered several cuts from the crescent moons, especially his chest, which bled uncontrollably. Lin Sr. This is the end for you, he said as he tried to cut off his head, but then he felt part of his shoulder and chest being destroyed, and in the process, his kimono was also destroyed. So Lin Sr. took a step back and saw the culprit behind his injury, seeing a medieval Viking ball and another that was an axe. Both were being held by two chains, and those chains were moving towards their owner. Then he saw a magic circle where he saw three people he never thought he would see again. Lin Sr. Wow, I never thought I'd see the slave, the girl-voiced one, and the shitty farmer. He said as the three boys appeared, one of them holding a weapon that injured Lin Sr. Hyoudou was speechless when he saw who they were, since he himself had witnessed Lin Jr. execute them. Hyoudou. Clyde, Liam, and Rusty, he said speechlessly. Thus they approached the side of the battle and approached Hyoudou. Clyde. Hyoudou, sew up those wounds on your chest and rest a bit, we'll take care of him. He said while Hyoudou didn't know why but felt very reassured by his words and left, and in the process helped Ardor and Bhikkhu who were injured by Lin Sr.'s attack. Ardor. So these are the boys who told us, he said while being helped by Hyoudou. Bhikkhu. I see great strength in them, he said as they went to a place to stitch up their wounds. Roberto. They arrived on time, he said with a smile while continuing his attack to destroy Lin Sr. Clyde. I used to respect you for your cooking, but now I feel hatred knowing you were the worst father in history, he said while spinning his ball where Lin Sr. felt a great pressure and felt how the air that the weapon made him get closer to Clyde. Rusty? I hope Rocky is okay, he said while drawing his katana. Liam? And also from my little sister, he said while pulling out 2 katanas. Lin Sr. That's what they want, right? He said as he drew his katana. Lin Sr. Moon breathing 16th moon rainbow stance, he said as he showed them no mercy and made his attack stronger as the crescent moons approached the 3. Rusty. Water breathing 11th stance calm, he said as a lake of water appeared and Lin Sr.'s crescent moons were destroyed and in the process his katana was also cut to pieces. Lin Sr. What? He said in surprise, but had to dodge a slash from Zenobia who attacked by surprise, followed by Irina who threw several rings of light at him, which he destroyed. Roberto. Thinking, hold out for 2 minutes and my attack will be ready to end it, he said in his thoughts. No one noticed that Zenobia took a piece of Zenobia's sword and kept it for an important moment. Lin Sr. Damn it, he said as several swords appeared on his body preventing anyone from approaching him and said. Lin Sr. Lunar breathing 15th stance lunar meteorites, he said as several large crescent moons with murderous intentions appeared in the sky. Kiba and Tadana saw a weak point in Lin Sr. where they looked at each other and nodded. So Kiba goes with Ardor and Biku and they understand. Clyde just sees the meteorites and spins his medieval ball. But Futuro had 2 very long cuts on his chest, but he stitched them himself, stopping the bleeding. Futuro. Damn it, at this rate I'll die from lack of blood. Issei forbade us from using the turbo until we face Lin, but screw it, he said, activating the turbo where everyone turned to look at him and he had great power along with his armor. Tadano. I won't be left behind either, he said, activating the turbo in the same way, but he had the disadvantage of having lost his hand. Kiba. I can't just stand idly by, he said, activating the turbo, causing many swords to emerge from the ground. Lin Sr. I can play like that too, he said as he let out a scream and an incredible number of swords emerged from his body, his hair growing longer along with his power. At the end, Lin Sr. had long hair, a katana with many eyes, and was 20 meters long with several katanas like knives on its sides, and his height increased a little. Lin Sr. Now come and get me, he said as he opened his eyes, where everyone felt a pressure and Lin Sr. wasted no time. Then they all heard something fall, and when they turned around they were shocked to see what it was. And so everyone sees Kiba's head fall to the ground along with his body. Roberto. Thinking, I could barely see him, he thought wordlessly, his attack almost ready. Roberto. Guys, you'll have to keep that goblin in a position where he can't move. My attack is almost ready. He said as everyone nodded, but they were still shocked to see Kiba dead. Thus Clyde spins his weapons at great speed, creating a large gust of wind. Clyde. Rock breathing 5th stance stone wheel firm, he said while destroying everything in his path where Lin Sr. tried to dodge such an attack, but Rusty did something to subdue him. Rusty. Water breathing 9th form chaotic splash, he said as several puddles of water appeared on the ground where he cut Lin Sr.'s arms. Liam. Breath of sound, 4th form, Avicii's death sentence, he said, unleashing a storm of sound slashes that destroyed Lin Sr.'s legs. Thus, Ardor, Biku and Tadano all rushed towards Lin Sr., who was regenerating. Ardor buried his sword in his chest, Tadano buried his sword in his stomach, and Biku buried his staff in his right eye. Roberto. Are you ready, you bastard? This is the end for you. He said, but saw Lin Sr. scream and launch several crescent moons from his body, cutting Tadano in half vertically, Biku's head cut off, and Ardor cut him in half horizontally. Tadano was between life and death, but he gripped his sword so tightly that it turned crimson. Lin Sr. A scream of pain upon feeling that stab wound. Roberto. Damn you, shouting with pure anger as he watches Lin Sr. lunge towards him, but Clyde ties him up with his chains and throws him to the ground. Clyde throws his medieval ball, hitting Lin Sr. on the head where he let out a scream. Clyde. His neck is very stiff, he said seriously. Then he saw Zenobia and Irina with their swords, and they struck Clyde's medieval ball, turning it crimson. Thus Clyde, with the help of Zenobia and Irina, decapitated Lin Sr., but they saw him walk away and cut off Tadano's other hand, causing his body to fall to the ground. Tadano. I gave it my all, he said, hovering between life and death, losing large amounts of blood. Thus Lin Sr.'s head regenerates, but it has the head of a monster that screams and throws crescent moons wildly, while Rusty and Liam protect Zenobia and Irina, and Clyde protects Roberto and Israel. Futuro. At this rate, he'll kill us all. He said while watching the damage he was doing. Futuro saw his spear, and he only saw Lin Sr. Futuro. Clyde, take care of those silly girls Nino, Ichika, Miku, Yutsuba, and Itsuki. Tell Raiha to watch out and tell my father to take good care of my little sister. He said as he ran towards Lin Sr., where he hit the crescent moons that Lin Sr. was throwing, and Lin Sr. buried his spear where he had buried his sword, Tadano. Hyoudou saw Tadano's sword turn crimson as he squeezed it tightly, so he squeezed his spear, which also turned crimson. Lin Sr. A scream of pain, creating several swords that pierce Hyoudou's body. Hyoudou. Now Roberto, launch that attack. He said while Roberto hesitated to do it. Roberto. You're crazy, you'll die, he said while preparing his attack. Hyoudou. It doesn't matter, Kiba, Ardor, Biku and Tadano are dead. Don't let their death be in vain. He said and shouted as more swords pierced his body. Roberto just put on a serious face and shouted. Roberto. Die you damned wretch, he screams as he transforms into his god mode at maximum power and creates a powerful attack that destroys everything in its path, including the rubble. Statues of Lin and the Lin concentration camps were destroyed. Lin Sr. was being destroyed by Roberto's attack, just like Hyoudou. Hyoudou just had a smile and remembered something. Flashback. The rooftop of Hyoudou's school was visible, where he and the quintuplets were seen. Itsuki. So, who are you going to choose? She said while waiting for their answer, just like the others. Hyoudou. None of them, don't get the wrong idea, I like all 5 of them, but I don't want any of them to be happy, while the others are very sad because of me. He said while bowing, surprising the 5 of them since it was the first time they had seen him do that. Hyoudou. Excuse me, he said as he left. The 5 of them only look at each other and form a circle to discuss this. Some time later. Hyoudou is seen walking towards his job but is stopped by 5 voices. The 5. Hyoudou-san-kun, they said as they approached. He turns around and receives a kiss from Nino, surprising him, followed by another from Ichika, another from Miku, another from Yotsuba, although it was somewhat clumsy, and another from Itsuki. Itsuki. Hyoudou-kun, we talked about it and we've decided something, she said with a smile. Hyoudou. What is it? He said, confused. Nino. We came to the conclusion to share you, we don't care what people think, we love you, she said with a smile. Hyoudou is surprised to hear that, so they all hug him, and seeing that they were determined to share him, Hyoudou returns the hug and says. Hyoudou. I promise to take care of all of you no matter what, you quintet of fools, he said with a smile that reciprocated. Quintuplets. Take care of us from now on, they said at the same time. Vindel flashed back. Hyoudou had a smile on his face and disappeared along with Lin Sr. Hyoudou. Goodbye, he said, disappearing. Lin Sr. was finally defeated, but it came at a great cost. Kiba, Ardor, Biku, Tadano, and Hyoudou were all killed. So Zenobia, Irina, Clyde, Rusty, Liam Israel and Roberto approach Tadano's body, and he has a note in his hand. Clyde takes it and reads it. Clyde. Take good care of Komi-san and tell her I love her, he said sadly upon seeing Tadano dead. Roberto takes off his jacket and covers Tadano. Roberto. We have to keep fighting, he said as they nodded and left. On the ground lay Tadano's spear and a heart-shaped necklace with the number 5 in the center. Chapter 120 Lisa vs. Boys. After the defeat of the Argentinian, Lin Sr., the boys were inside the Gremory mansion seeing many corpses. Zenobia. Roberto-sama, you can bring Ardor, Biku, Kiba, Tadano, and Hyoudou back to life. She said, looking at him. Irina. Oh right, he could have done it with Lily, I don't think it's, but she didn't finish because Roberto spoke. Roberto. No, he said seriously. Irina. What do you mean, no? She said incredulously. Clyde. You didn't notice, did you? He said seriously. Rusty. That miserable wretch, besides having moon breathing, also had the eyes of greed, he said seriously. Zenobia. Eyes of greed, she said, confused. Liam. The power of those eyes prevented your opponent from using their full power. The boys and Mr. Roberto barely used 25% of their maximum power, he said seriously. Roberto. It's impossible to bring them back to life since both their bodies and souls were destroyed when they had the turbo power. Now they are just dust as if they had never existed, he said seriously. Irina. But we saw Issei come back to life, how can you say that? She said as she stopped. Roberto. Issei was just lucky, I don't think we'll be lucky too, he said as they continued on their way. Then they see Rias and the girls return. Israel. What's wrong? He said while looking at them. Rias. We have to return to the human world. It seems the invaders haven't been completely defeated yet. She said seriously. Itsuki. The leaders are fighting with a few soldiers that remain, but we have to return. She said seriously. Roberto. Okay, let's go to the human world, he said while making a large magic circle. Homie. Wait, where's Tadano-kun? She said while looking around. Nino. Oh right, and where is Hyoudou-kun? she said while looking around for him. Rias. And Kiba too, she said while also looking for him. The Fae. Also, where are my brother and Biku-san? She said while looking for them but finding nothing. They were silent and Roberto says. Roberto. I'm sorry girls, but they're dead. He said very seriously. This came as a complete shock to the couples of Hyoudou, Komi, Rias and the Fae. All of Hyoudo's partners were on their knees, shedding a sea of tears as they couldn't believe it. Itsuki. You're lying, she said while looking at him. Miku. Liar Hyoudou can't be dead, she said, putting her shy side aside. They were all crying non-stop, even Rias, who couldn't believe her knight had died. Komi. But you can bring them back to life, right? She said, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Roberto explained to them why he couldn't bring them back to life, leaving them all devastated. Komi could only cry, as could her friends. Nin was crying non-stop because she considered Tadano a great friend and a secret love. Najimi also cried a lot because she was never able to confess her feelings to him. But the one who cried the most was Kawai, who, despite rejecting Tadano, regretted that stupid decision. Zenobia. Listen, do you think they would want to see you like this? She said as they looked at her. Irina. It's true, Hyoudou and Tadano, even Ardor, Biku and Kiba gave it their all, she said while they watched them. Clyde. It's true, they're going to let those feelings bring them down. Do what they would do and fight without stopping, he said as he looked at him, and they were surprised to see who it was. Liam. They will always live in your hearts, and no matter what, they will always be by your side, he said while they just looked at him and dried their tears. The quintuplets felt a light tap on their heads and saw that it was Hyoudou, giving them a smile and saying. Hyoudou. Fools, keep fighting, he said as he disappeared. Komi felt a hug from behind and felt the same sensation when Tadano hugged him. Upon realizing this, he saw Tadano, who smiled at him and disappeared. Rias felt someone grab her shoulder, looking at Kiba who gave her a smile. Kiba. Keep fighting, President, he said with a smile that faded away. The Fae felt an embrace and saw that it was Ardor and Biku who were smiling and said to him. Arthur. Give it your all in this battle, he said as he disappeared. Biku. If Issei makes you a woman, I'll take care of castrating him. She said with a smile that disappeared. Thus they stand up and motivate themselves, disappearing and going in search of the nest of the invaders of Venus. But the boys. They were fighting evenly against Lisa, who had the upper hand in the battle. Lisa. The ice affects them, doesn't it? She said with a playful smile, watching Saji spit up a lot of blood. Vitra. Buddy, you can't breathe the vapor that ice gives off, it destroys your respiratory system, he said seriously. Saji. I know, Vitra, but I can't give up, he said as he lunged forward and said. Saji. Blood technique, war kick, he said while Lisa created a wall of ice but was sent flying. Lisa had some broken bones, but they healed instantly. Lisa. Hitting me won't achieve anything, it's my neck, they have to aim for my neck, she said as they lunged again. Shido shoots Lisa in the neck, but she appears behind Shido and creates a spear of light that hits him in the stomach. Shido couldn't scream because shock overwhelmed him, but Ryota punched Lisa, sending her flying. Then Ryo grabbed her with his chains and slammed her to the ground. Lisa. Not bad humans, but it's my turn, she said as she created a huge giant ice Buddha and it grabbed Shido who tried to break free from the Buddha's grip, but it began to crush him. Shido. A scream of pain as he felt his bones break. The giant Buddha did not stop and destroyed all of Shido's bones until he broke the last one. Ryota. You damn bitch, he said, delivering a powerful blow to the giant Buddha, destroying it and causing Shido to fall to the ground seriously injured. Shido ended up with 98% of his bones broken and he couldn't move. Saji. Shit and more shit, he said while creating some fire whips from Vitra and he began a whipping attack where Lisa used her ice dancers as a shield. Lisa didn't see when Naoto cut off her arm with his chainsaw and Saji took advantage of this to whip her chin, causing black fire to spread throughout her body. Lisa just smiled and blew out Vitra's flames. Vitra. But how? She said, unable to believe it. Lisa. My eye surpasses your flames, pathetic snake. She said as she created about 20 copies of herself, which then launched themselves toward Saji and Naoto. Naoto destroyed them with his chainsaws, but he was surprised to find that they could perform the same techniques as the original Lisa. Saji. She's using the little ground she has to her advantage, he said while firing a rain of black flames, destroying all the copies of Lisa. Lisa felt someone grab her waist and saw that it was Ryo who had taken her by the waist. Ryo. Take this, he said as he unleashed a whip of fire that aimed towards her, but she just smiled. So she takes the chain and pulls it, making Ryo approach her, and without any mercy, she pierces him like a donut through his stomach, leaving him in shock and spitting up a lot of blood. Lisa. I'm sorry I hurt you, she said with a smile. Ryo fell to the ground while spitting up a lot of blood and clutching his stomach. Lisa. 2 out, the others are missing, she said as she lunged towards Naoto, where they both began a bloody battle, where only pools of blood could be seen coming out of both of them. Lisa managed to cut Naoto's chainsaw blade, but he managed to make a large cut on her head where she was distracted, and Naoto almost cut off her head, but she reacted and dodged it. Thus Lisa regenerates her head and freezes Naoto, who could do nothing and was frozen by Lisa. Lisa. Don't worry, you'll soon be a great specimen for my experiments. She said as she left, leaving Naoto frozen. She approaches Saji, who tries to lash out with his whip, but she moves at great speed and almost gouges out his eyes. However, she senses an attack coming towards her, causing her to back away. That's how he saw Vali and Sekyryuutei, who arrived on time. Vali. Fighting with your mutations was a big problem, he said as Saji recovered. Sekyryuutei. That's true, especially since Vali couldn't divide, he said seriously. Ryota then approached Naoto, who was frozen, and punched him, destroying the ice and thawing Naoto. Ryota. The reinforcements have arrived, he said while activating the turbo, as did the others. Naoto. Or what they are, he said, seeing only 2 reinforcements. Vali approached Saji, who stood to one side of him. Vali. You look terrible, he said seriously. Saji. You think so? He said sarcastically, spitting out a little blood. Sekyryuutei. I want to have a fight with you, Ryota, he said while looking at him. Ryota. Yes, but it will be later, he said as they watched Lisa recover. Naoto. We have to cut his throat, he said as everyone immediately activated the turbo. So they rushed towards Lisa, who was fanning herself with currents of air that the boys couldn't breathe. Lisa created several copies of herself, but then she saw Vali take out her wings and say. Albion. Divide, 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 said the dragon inside, dividing Lisa's power, but she only summons ice roses which she throws towards Vali. Vali dodges them, but one of them hits him, exploding and sending Vali flying to another place. Lisa felt great pain as Ryota punched her in the stomach, piercing through her, and Sekyryuutei delivered a powerful blow to her neck, almost breaking it. Naoto lunged towards Lisa to break her ice, but she only summoned a giant ice Buddha that grabbed Ryota and Sekyryuutei. Both tried to break free from the Buddha's grip, but it was about to do the same thing it did to Shido. Thus he began to exert force where Seryuutei's armor began to break and Ryota felt a strong grip on his body. When they were about to be destroyed from their bones, Saji tied Lisa by the neck and launched his flames again. Lisa was about to turn them off, but she felt chains on her body and saw Naoto, who had chains on his back and was responsible for her being tied up. Ryota took advantage of this, breaking Buddha's arm and helping Sekyryuutei, who was having difficulty breaking the ice. Naoto was close to cutting Lisa's throat, but she screamed and ice spears pierced Saji and Naoto, who were shocked to see the stakes in their bodies. Lisa was close to cutting Naoto off at the head, but Vali arrived in time and kicked Lisa, sending her flying, and Albion divided Lisa's power. Albion. Vali, you have to be careful, she can regenerate her energy as well as her body, he said while Vali understood. Lisa. I'm tired of games, you know. Lin will be furious if I keep this up, so I'm leaving. She said, creating 50 ice copies of herself, which then launched a blast of ice, covering the boys in frost that hurt them. Lisa was retreating from the battle when she felt a shot to her neck, and when she turned around she saw Shido who was standing there using the turbo, but all his bones were broken or rather most of them. Shido. I hope it works, he said as he fell to the ground. Lisa just smiled and said. Lisa. That's adorable, human, but not with that, but she didn't finish because she felt one of her eyes fall to the ground, followed by excruciating pain in her organs and bones. The copies he made were destroyed, and they watched as Lisa was destroyed. Lisa. What is this? She said, but her jaw detached from her jaw, preventing her from speaking and only allowing her to babble. Saji. What's wrong with him? He said as he ran alongside Naoto. Ryota. It doesn't matter, we have to take advantage of this, he said as they ran towards Lisa. Lisa, thinking, I can break down those poisons, but they will arrive. I will not allow it, she said, creating a giant ice Buddha again, but it was being destroyed. The Buddha punched Ryota, sending him flying, followed by another punch that sent Saji flying, destroying his armor. Naoto didn't have Ryota's strength, so he couldn't destroy the Buddha, but then he saw a chain around the Buddha's waist. When he turned around, he saw Ryo, who had the turbo but was between life and death. So he let out a shout and lashed out with a wave of electrical energy, destroying the ice Buddha. Ryo. Now Naoto, he said as Naoto ran as fast as he could towards Lisa, but she with her last strength began to freeze Naoto, who had one of his chainsaws nearby, but couldn't cut him. Naoto. I can't cut it, he said while trying to move but couldn't. Sekyryuutei and Vali. We will help you, he said as they both threw a sword from Vali and a piece of metal that Sekyryuutei found. Thus, both objects collided, allowing Naoto to cut Lisa's neck, causing her to lose her head. Lisa. Thinking, I'll cut off my head, it seems. I could try not to die like my fraternal unit did, but I don't mind losing. I guess I've always been like this. Lincoln, I could never feel emotions, that's why I always risked my life doing experiments, but not with this. She thought as she turned to ashes. Before going to hell, he felt as if only his head was being held by someone. Upon seeing who it was, he saw Tadano, who had a smile on his face. Tadano. You finally died, right? So Shido used the special bullet we made. He said while holding it, but only its head was visible. Lisa. So you and Shido made that bullet with every poison in existence, both human and supernatural. She said while looking at it. Tadano. That's right, and please don't pronounce our names, he said with a smile. Lisa. You know, Tadano, you're an interesting person. I remember watching you play basketball with Shido, Futuro, and the other Homer Blacks. You looked, how do I pronounce it? Cute. She said while feeling her heartbeat. Lisa. What is this? My heart won't stop beating. This is beautiful. Tadano, I love you, I love you. Come to hell with me. She said with a tender blush. Tadano just had a smile and said. Tadano. You better leave, you damn scum, he said while crushing Lisa's head with a smile. This is what Lisa's body looked like turning to ashes, and when they saw Lisa disappear, they approached. Naoto. I'm done, he said as he no longer saw Lisa. They approached Shido, who is turning to ashes in the same way as Ryo. Shido. I'm glad I could help, he said as he turned to ashes. Shido. Tell my girls that I love them and I will always be by their side, no matter if they don't feel it. He said as he turned to ashes and disappeared. They all just stared at this with melancholy and they approached Ryo's body, who was between life and death. Ryo. If I die, tell Alice she was a great friend and tell Middler that I love her and that she was the only one who saw beyond me. He said as he disappeared into pieces. The boys only see that and they keep going. Ryota. We have to move forward. Lin is responsible for all this. We have to help Issei, who's in worse shape than we are. He said as they nodded and moved forward. On the battlefield, only Shido's rifle and Ryo's chain remain, reflecting a great honor. Chapter 121 Enemy of the Past and Weakness. After the defeat of two of Lin's great soldiers, Issei was seen touching his wound, but the hooded figure sealed it with a phoenix tear. But after talking for a while, the person removes their hood, revealing who it was. Issei. Lini, he said incredulously, not believing who it was. Lin Jr. The traitor has returned after a long time, he said while looking at her with annoyance. Issei. You brainless bitch. He said as he lunged at Lini, but she just created a shield and calmed Issei down. Lini. Calm down, you need to listen to me so you understand why I did that to Linky, she said while he wasn't convinced. Issei. You have 10 seconds before I tear you to pieces, he said while taking out a watch and starting to count the seconds. Lini. Well, I was controlled, she said, but Issei wasn't convinced. Lini. At first I believed in Lincoln's bad luck, but I realized it was wrong to do that to Linky when they started beating him up, until that day came, the day Lini Loud was controlled and manipulated by that damn piece of shit Lin Sr., she said while Issei wasn't understanding. Flashback to years ago. Lini was having a serious conversation with her family. Lini. Understand that this got out of control, Linky isn't unlucky, he just wanted some time to himself, she said while telling her family. Lisa. Nonsense, according to my research Lincoln has a 98% chance of bad luck and he's also to blame for everything that's happened in this family. However, with a container that turns his bad luck into good luck, it increases to 200%, she said while holding up a whiteboard with many calculations. Lini. What does it matter if Lincoln brings bad luck or not? He's our brother and we can't treat him like that. She said while they didn't pay much attention to her. Rita. I'm sorry, dear, but it's for our own good. We can't risk her bad luck affecting this family, so that's the end of the discussion. She said, but Lini had other plans. Lini. Then if that's the case, I'll take Lincoln away from this town of fools, far away from you all, and I'll come back for Issei. I won't let you hurt my brother. She said as she walked to the backyard but felt a strong blow to her head that knocked her unconscious. Luna. Sister, what did you do? She said as she saw Lin Jr. with her bat. Lin Jr. Relax, I only knocked her unconscious, but we need to get rid of those stupid thoughts she's having, he said while looking at her. Lisa. I have the solution, she said as she went to her room and came downstairs holding a pearl necklace. Linka. What good will a pearl necklace do us? She said, confused. Lisa. Easy, we can control Lini from now on and she'll be on our side so she doesn't help Lincoln like she did Issei, she said while they smiled at the idea. So Lisa put the collar on her, brainwashed her, and began to control her like a puppet. Thus Lini Loud was controlled by her own family, and the shitty Argentinian used his daughter Lini as the pleasure of several old millionaires who paid Lin Sr. to have his daughter be the pleasure of those people. Lini could do nothing because she was controlled by Lisa and Lin Sr., who controlled her daughter to earn money and for her sexual gratification. After that came the Molotov genocide where Lini was killed by Ryota, as was Lori. But no one had noticed that the necklace Lini had worn all along had been broken by Ryota's force when he murdered her. Then Lin Jr. was resurrected by Roberto's enemies and brought his family back to life to help, but when Lini returned to life, she didn't receive him as she wanted. In the destroyed town of Royal Woods, banging and attacks could be heard. Lini looked extremely furious, and on the ground her family could be seen with several bruises, especially Lin Sr. who was bleeding from his head as well as his penis. Lini was using Lin Jr. as a punching bag. Lin Jr. barely knew her powers but couldn't do anything because of Lini's great fury. Lini. Damn it, because of you Linky is dead, she said while she had Lin Jr. on the floor and was hitting him repeatedly. Lin Jr. was bleeding from her eyebrow, mouth and nose, but she, fed up with Lini, threw a powerful punch at her since she couldn't control her powers, sending her flying far away from them. Lin Jr. She'll pay for this later, he said as he carried his family and they left the destroyed town of Royal Woods. Lini fell onto an island far from Michigan and couldn't do much, barely crawling away. Several Koreans came ashore on the island and when they saw Lini, they took her in and began to heal her. These Koreans were the ones Issei and his allies had saved from North Korea. They helped Lini recover from Lin Jr.'s attack and once recovered, she had a goal. The revenge against Lin Jr., he trained day and night without rest, where the very kind Koreans gave him a katana with which to practice. Despite not having powers, Lini had great physical condition and trained until she coughed up blood or fell unconscious. Luckily for Lini, she found an old chest and when she opened it, she saw some books which she thought were history books, so she decided to kill time. But he saw that they were books that talked about breathing techniques with katanas to kill demons. She was interested in that and so she saw that years ago, before the gods and supernatural beings were known, there were demons that ate humans. This piqued her interest and she decided to train, so she asked the Koreans for several different types of katanas. So the Koreans did and she began to train, where she began to use breathing techniques such as love, snakes, dream, ice, fog, rock, water, flames, solar, lunar, sound, wind, cherry blossom, insect, flowers, beast, and lightning. It was very difficult for her, but after training without rest, she was able to learn all the breathing techniques as well as learn about the hunter's marks. After training non-stop until she broke her bones and reached a temperature of 60 degrees Celsius, to the point of dying, she had a mark on her cheek that was the Aztec calendar. She was surprised, as were the Koreans who were fond of Lini, since she treated them like family, especially the children. Thus motivated, she created her breathing technique, which she called Aztec breathing. She was able to perform 15 Aztec breathing postures, and for the cake, the Koreans decided to teach her the turbo power, which Lini, with great difficulty, was able to control. Now, with her turbo power and the breathing techniques, she was someone to be feared. Until the day came when Lin Jr. decided to attack everything. She easily eliminated every Lin soldier who tried to conquer the island. So she went in search of Lin, where she investigated and was only able to find out where the battle between Issei and Lin had taken place. So when she arrived, she only found a piece of Lin's hair, which motivated her to investigate how to kill her. So after much research, he discovered Lin's great weakness. Lini. You can't escape now, she said with a smile. Later, she secretly followed the Allied army, discreetly revealing weaknesses like Lucy's and motivating the boys to continue fighting against their copies. End of flashback. Lini. I've waited 6 years for this, she said as a magic circle appeared and a katana emerged. Lini, this time I'll finish you off Lin. Issei, I understand you hate me. I hate myself for not helping my little brother, but if you want, you can kill me once this is over. She said while making a magic circle and they disappeared. In Japan. It was seen at night where a magic circle was visible, where Issei and Lini could be seen in a desert area. Issei. Where are we? He said while looking around. Lini. I can only teleport people to Japan when we're in the underworld. It's 3 a.m, we have to endure 3 hours until the sun rises. She said while looking at Issei. Issei. And what's that for? He said while looking at her. Lini. Lin's only weakness is the sun. If we make her expose herself to the sun, she said seriously. Issei. She will die instantly, he said as he understood Lini's plan. Lin Jr. Try to stop me here, I'm going to kill you, this is your damn end, she said as her body changed, now having white hair, her breasts exposed, and red eyes more bloody than those of Big Red. She then launches sharp tentacles at both of them, and they lunged towards Lin Jr. The final battle where only the strongest will live. Chapter 122 Issei, Linian vs Lin Jr. In a desert area, Lin Jr. was seen with her new appearance, and without thinking twice, she launched her attacks. Lin Jr. launched several sharp tentacles towards both of them, and Issei used many power-ups to dodge Lin Jr.'s attacks. Lini just watched Lin's attacks towards her, then she drew her katana and said, "Lini. What are breathing, 11th calm form," she said as the tentacles were destroyed and she launched herself towards Lin. Lin Jr. Thinking, that breath could destroy my tentacles, but I'm stronger. She said as she created two swords of light and launched herself towards Issei. Issei was going to punch Lin in the face, but Lin Jr. was quick and cut his abdomen. Upon sensing the light, Issei felt a great pain, but even so, Issei took out his light gun and shot Lin in the eye. Lin only had a serious expression, and then her eye regenerated. Lin Jr. My turn, he said as he launched several tentacles to pierce Issei, but his tentacles were destroyed. Lini. Aztec breathing, first stance, Aztec calendar, she said as a rock with the Aztec calendar destroyed Lin's attacks, where she looked at Lini with annoyance. Lin Jr. Brainless bitch, he said while summoning two knuckle dusters in his hands and lunging towards Lini where both weapons clash. Lini. Thinking, if he hits me with one of those mittens, it'll be the end of me. They have poison in them. She said as she smelled the poison on the mittens. Lini. Breath of love, first stance, first love shivers, she said as her katana transformed into a kind of ballerina ribbon and made a large number of cuts on Lin, destroying the mittens she had and making several cuts. Drag. Buddy, we have to accept it. Lin is on another level, just like Lini. She's barely hanging on. There's not much we can do. He said with a serious expression. Issei. Damn it, if only I were stronger, he said while on the floor and punched himself making a hole. Then someone climbed onto his shoulders, looking at someone he hadn't seen in a long time. Issei. Office-chan, he said, seeing that she had her lowly form. Office. Sorry for the delay, but I see you need help. She said while watching the fight between Lini and Lin. Issei. Yes, but I barely managed to shoot you, and the worst part was that I didn't do anything to her. He said while watching as Lini cut Lin's cheek, but Lin kicked her, making her back up. Office. I see, Alpha, but I'll lend you my power. I won't give you all of it, I'll give you 95% of my power. She said while holding an energy snake. Issei. Wait, what will happen to you? He said while looking at her. Office. I'll be asleep for a long time, don't worry, I'll recover my power. I am the goddess of infinity for a reason. Only Roberto and Great Red can take my power away. She said while Issei just smiled. Issei. Alright, I accept your power, he said as the energy snake entered him, causing him to let out a great scream and feel his muscles being destroyed and becoming stronger. After a minute of suffering, Issei felt much more powerful. Issei looked at his hands and felt someone drooling and saw Office fast asleep. Issei, at a beastly speed, leaves Office in some trees where she settles down. Issei. Thank you Office-chan, I promise I'll win, he said while giving her a kiss on the forehead. Thus Issei returns to the battlefield. Lini had a cut on her face and she had two saw-like katanas and she said. Lini. Beast breath, fifth fang, Cortez madness, she said, making a large number of cuts to Lin's tentacles and followed by cutting off Lin's arm, which regenerated immediately. Lin Jr. I'm tired of you, you damn traitor. She said as she created claws on her hands and lunged at Lini. Lini was about to counterattack, but Lin was just about to cut her down when Lin felt a strong blow to her face that sent her flying, followed by a kick that slammed her to the ground. Lin stands up and sees Issei, who has the infinity symbol behind him. Lin Jr. I see, that stripper loli gave you all her power. It doesn't matter, since I'm number one and you're nothing more than a pervert who only has Manuela as a girlfriend. She said while trying to block Issei's power as she did with Issei's turbo, which prevented him from using it for a while. Issei. Drag, do it, he said while preparing his fist. Drag boots 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 boots, he said while making several infinite boosts where Issei's power no longer had limits. Thus Issei gave Lin a powerful blow that tore off part of his skull, along with his right eye. Lin glares at Issei with annoyance and, very irritated, launches several sharp tentacles at him, who dodges them. Then Lin felt two gunshots in her back, followed by a blow from a sledgehammer that knocked her to the ground. To top it all off, she felt flames burning her, but she extinguished them. He also felt his tentacles being severed where he saw another attacker. Lin saw an albino with an eye patch and said. Lin Jr. So you're Hajime Nagumo, the one who defeated Linka when I gave her those marine powers. He said while looking at the albino. Hajime? That's right, I can say you're a loser bitch. I heard what you did in the past and it makes me sick, so neither I nor any of my girls will show you any mercy. He said while pointing his weapons at her. Hajim. Yu prepares an upward fire attack, Tio transforms into a dragon and launches a fire attack, the strongest you can, Shay predicts what will happen and attacks its weak points, Kaori cuts those annoying tentacles, he said as they nodded. Issei. I have to help him, he said as his armor gauntlets transformed into 2 cannons and he approached Hajim. Hajim. Awesome, he said, looking at Issei's cannons, and Issei took out a cannon he made himself and prepared to fire. Lin Jr. I won't let them, he said while creating several sharp tentacles and launching them towards them, but Kaori cuts them off. Kaori. There are too many tentacles, she said while cutting, but the tentacles were heading towards Issei and Hajim. Lin Jr. used his eyes to block Kaori's abilities, who could no longer do much, and the tentacles were about to pierce them both. Lini. Breath of Sound, 5th form, Symphony of Thunderous Strings, she said while throwing some marble-shaped bombs that exploded on Lin's tentacles, destroying them all, and also helping Kaori, who was exposed. Just then, Lin felt a sharp blow to the head and saw Shay striking her with his mallet. Hajim. Now uncle, he said as uncle launched a powerful fire attack at Lin Jr., causing Lin Jr. to feel his body burning. Lin looked up and saw Yu with a large fireball, and without thinking, she launched it, and Lin took the full force of the attack. Lin was badly injured and saw Hajim and Issei, both smiling, as they launched their attacks, destroying Lin's body. Issei. You notice it, right? He said as Hajim and Lini nodded. Then they saw the steam from the place gather and Lin Jr. appear to return. Lin Jr. That was interesting, but it's my turn. She said as she thrust her tentacles through the ground and everyone felt an electric shock. Lin Jr. You know, Issei, if I had the powers of those women from that pathetic god, I would have already finished you off, but that damned wretch took them from me before I even realized it. She said while continuing her stronger electric discharge, making them fly so the electricity wouldn't affect them, and Issei carried Lini so she wouldn't suffer. Lini. Thank you, she said as she no longer felt that electricity. Issei. We have to hold out until dawn, he said while looking at Lin who had an arrogant smile. Then Lin Jr. felt a cut on his back, seeing Naoto with his chainsaw. Naoto. Sorry we're late, he said as Lin Jr. looked at him but felt something break in his chest, seeing it was alcohol, and he saw Ryota with a torch and threw it at Lin, burning her. Lin Jr. just glares at Ryota, who then creates several more sharp tentacles. Saji. Are you guys okay? He said as he approached Issei. Issei. Yes, he said as he saw that Vali and Sererg would also join the battle. Naoto. You damned wretch. He said as he lunged at Lini. Issei. Wait, she's on our side, he said while they didn't understand. Issei. I'll tell you later, where is Shido? He said while looking around for Shido. The 5 remained silent and respond. Ryota. Shido and Ryo are dead, that bitch Lisa killed them, he said while Issei remained silent. Issei. You miserable, emotionless bitch. He said while clenching his fists. Lin Jr. More guests. Well, it doesn't matter since my latest ally has just woken up. He said with a smile. Naoto. What do you mean? He said while looking at her. Lin Jr. explains to them about the Queen of Venus who has already awakened and no one can stop her now. Lin Jr. It's time to fight for real, he said as he started screaming and his body changed. At the end, Lin's eyes were bloodthirsty and she had many fang-filled mouths on her body. Lin Jr. Let's see who's the strongest, she said with a smile. The final battle had begun and only the strongest would live. Chapter 123 Rias and Ravel vs and Invaders of Venus vs Allies. Meanwhile, elsewhere. The girls and the mass were seen looking at the world map, searching for something. Serafal. Where could the invaders' nest be? She said while looking at the map. Roberto. I have no idea. We need to investigate quickly where those invaders appeared. He said seriously. Then Juan and David appear with a magic circle. Juan. We're already ahead and they're here, he said while pointing to a place, he said while pointing to a country. Roberto. They're on an island in Mexico, and the worst part is that, he said while looking at the place. Searches. What's wrong with him? He said while looking at him. Roberto. Years ago, when Mexico was still part of Spain, that island was considered cursed. It was said that France, the United States, and Mexico all fought over it, but they realized that the island had no value whatsoever. The only value it had was seagull droppings, but they were of very poor quality and sold very cheaply, so that island doesn't belong to anyone. He said seriously. Azazel. I understand now, so his nest is a meteorite and no one noticed because it landed in a spot where no one would pay attention, he said as David and Juan nodded. Serafal. Well then, let's go destroy that nest. She said as they nodded. Thus, everyone teleports to the nest of the Venus invaders. On the island. The large magic circle appeared to emerge from the sand, and upon reaching it, all that could be seen was a desert of sand and a huge meteorite within it. Michael? That's the nest, he said while watching the large meteor. Searches. Let's not waste time, he said as he advanced, as did the army, but then a hail of bullets hit them directly, causing them to invoke a magic circle where they defended themselves. Some angels were unable to react and were struck by bullets. When they looked to see who was responsible, they saw a brunette girl with a dog. Despicable beings, I hate you so much, you are stupid beings, I will kill the villains, he said while looking at them with great hatred, as did his dog. Seiryu. My name is Seiryu and I will be your executioner, he said while looking at them. They all felt terror in their bodies as they looked at her and felt her great power. Rias and the others felt a chill, but with the courage they possessed, they spoke. Rias. Hey you, she said, but Seiryu looked at her with piercing eyes. Seiryu. What's going on? Is someone against what I'm doing? Speak up already. She said while looking at them with contempt. Rias. Tell me, why are we the villains? She said while looking at her. Seiryu. Why do you kill and terrorize the weak? You murdered many people who had families, women and children who had nothing to do with it. They were innocent people who didn't kill a fly. He said while looking at him. Rias couldn't help but feel hatred towards that girl. Rias. Innocent beings, who are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense. When will they stop playing the victim? I bet each soldier of that bitch Lin killed at least 150 people. She said hatefully. Seiryu. But those people had nothing to do with you, right? She said while looking at them. Rias. I don't think so, she said while activating her destructive power. Seiryu. So what motive did you have for killing them? She said while looking at them. Rias. I don't need one when you guys killed even children who had nothing to do with it, you guys go into the nest, I'll take care of her, she said while getting into a fighting stance. Seiryu. Kuoh transformation and number 1 sphere of justice of Shinko, she said as her dog transforms into a muscular and terrifying dog and it bites its mistress's arm and a ball of destruction appears. She then launches herself towards Rias, who awaits her with a sphere of destruction. Ravel. I'm joining the fight. She said as she created 2 fireballs and threw them at Seiryu. Seiryu, seeing the fireballs, destroys them with her ball of destruction and launches herself towards Ravel, who covers herself in fire. Seiryu had a demented look and he destroyed some of Ria's spheres of destruction and some of Ravel's fireballs. At that moment, Kuoh lunges towards Ravel and delivers a powerful punch that sends her flying. Rias. Ravel, she said, but felt bullets hit her shoulder, seeing Seiryu with pistols and an extra one in her mouth. Rias. Thinking, he has weapons all over his body, what's next, he'll have a cannon up his ass, she thought, but then saw Kuoh rip off Ravel's arm. Kuoh thought he had it won, but Ravel regenerates his arm with the power of the phoenix. Ravel. Receive my special attack, he said as he clasped his hands together and a firebird appeared. Ravel. Phoenix of the ashes, she said as a large phoenix appeared in her hands and launched itself towards Kuoh, who tried to destroy it with his strength but sent it flying towards his mistress. Seiryu. Damn Kuoh number 2, she said as Kuoh took a rocket launcher out of her mouth and gave it to Seiryu. Seiryu then launches several rockets towards Rias, who takes them head-on and is sent flying. Rias fell to the sand with some injuries and watched Ravel continue fighting against Kuoh, who was tearing off Ravel's limbs, but she regenerated. Rias. I'll have to use it, she said, activating her turbo power along with the Red Emperor armor. Without thinking, Rias lunges at Seiryu and delivers a powerful punch that sends her flying. Rias lunges at Seiryu again and hits her with another blow that leaves her on the ground. Rias was about to deliver the final blow, but Seiryu had something special. Seiryu. Number 3, she said while holding a huge blade that almost decapitated Rias, but Rias dodged it, though she did end up with a cut on her shoulder. Seiryu. You won't defeat me so easily, but she doesn't finish because Kuoh collided with her, sending her flying. Rias saw Ravel, who had her turbo power active along with the phoenix flames. Ravel. That dog is very strong, he said as he watched them both stand up. Seiryu. Damned villains. Kuoh number 5, Spear of Justice of Enma. He said while Kuoh bit his arm, holding a huge drill. Rias had 5 balls of destruction and launched them towards Seiryu, but Seiryu destroyed them with her drill. Rias takes the full force of the attack, which leaves her with a huge hole in her stomach. Rias. A scream of pain as she felt that wound. Seiryu tried to tear Rias apart, but Rias felt a powerful blow that sent her flying. Rias was on the ground and saw Itsuki, who had flames in his hands. Itsuki. Don't die, he said as his flames turned green and he began to heal Rias' stomach. Rias had recovered somewhat thanks to Itsuki, so she lunged towards Seiryu, who still had her drill. Itsuki was launching blue flames, but Seiryu pulls out a new weapon. Seiryu. Kuoh number 7 Justice Cannon Taisen, said as Kuoh approaches his mistress and bites her arm, and a huge cannon appears which without hesitation fires at Itsuki, who defends himself with his flames. Both attacks clash and neither surrenders, to the point that all that could be seen was the enormous light. Kuoh tried to defend his mistress, but Ravel, who had phoenix flames all over her body, lunged at Kuoh. Thus Ravel lunges towards him and begins to burn Kuoh, who was trying to regenerate, but the gem he possessed began to be damaged. Kuoh was about to bite Ravel's head, but Rias, with her strength somewhat recovered, activated her armor, launched herself towards Kuoh, and delivered a powerful blow to his gem, causing Kuoh to scream and fall unconscious. Rias and Ravel watched as Itsuki was losing ground, while Seiryu fired attacks, gaining ground. Thus, both approach and launch an attack. Ravel possessed the powers of the phoenix and created a phoenix bird, launching it towards Seiryu's attack. Rias created a dragon with her power of destruction and launched it towards Seiryu's attack. Seiryu tried to counter his combined attack, but she lost the clash and was split in half, falling to the ground. Seiryu fell to the ground, unable to move. "Seiryu. I lost, justice lost," she said as she watched Kuoh in his dog form approach her. "Seiryu. So you can't regenerate anymore, Kuoh. I don't want to live in a world of injustice. I'll use the final number. Chakravartin's 5 Hell's Furnace," she said as it glowed and Rias understood. Rias creates a magic circle to send Seiryu elsewhere, but Rias, Ravel and Itsuki all feel something grab their legs, preventing them from moving. They see 3 mountain climbing hooks catch them, and they realize Seiryu is responsible for this. "Seiryu. If I die, you all come with me," he said with a demented smile, and they disappeared. Thus they arrive at a deserted area where no one lived. Rias and the others break the hook and Seiryu explodes, creating a huge explosion that quickly covers the area. "Rias. We have to escape before it's too late," she said while she had her wings and carried Itsuki along with Ravel, who had her wings of fire. "Ravel. You should lay off the Akui tacos," he said while carrying Itsuki and escaping the explosion. "Itsuki. I'm not fat," she said with a pout. The explosion was about to hit them directly, and then it did. A huge dome of energy appeared, and after that, a huge mushroom-shaped cloud of smoke appeared where there was nothing left. All that could be seen was a large crater in the ground and no trace of survivors. But on one side, the 3 of them could be seen with their eyes closed, hugging each other, showing that they were alive. Looking around, they saw someone with a shield who saved them. He even had Kuoh with him, who had a sad expression. When they saw him, they couldn't believe it. Who was he? Words failed them to speak, for they could not believe who it was. In the nest of the Venus invaders before the fight between Rias, Ravel and Itsuki. Thus the allies entered the nest and upon arrival, saw an incredible number of invaders from Venus, who, without wasting any time, launched themselves towards the allies. Isaka approached and with his flames burned all the invaders, some falling dead or charred, while others suffered from the flames. So they entered, but they saw some invaders who had 1 eye, and these invaders flew with their pincers, and when they were above them, they inflated and fell in, killing some fallen angels. "Origami. We have to destroy these damn things," he said, dodging a crab's crushing blow. "Bakeno. These things are tough," she said while destroying some with her electricity. "Itsuki. How scary," she said while dodging a crab that was about to fall on her head. She didn't see one about to fall on her, but Ichika used her powers to create a rope, tie it up, and send it crashing into some rubble. "Ichika. Itsuki, you're scared, aren't you?" she said while Nino, Miku and Yotsuba defended them. Itsuki nods. "Itsuki. This place is damp, cold, and dark," she said, trembling. Ichika just hugs her and says. "Ichika. Go back to the entrance and help Rias and Ravel, they're surely in trouble," she said with a smile. "Itsuki. Are you sure?" she said while looking at her. "Miku. You go, we'll cover you," she said as an invader was about to cut her, but she noticed and froze him with her power. "Nino. Go away, we'll be fine," she said as 5 cane crabs attacked Nino, but she destroyed them with machine guns, followed by Yotsuba who kicked some with great force, destroying them. So Itsuki smiles and returns to the entrance where she will help Rias and Ravel. Thus the allied exercise advanced, but they saw another type of invader that had 2 cannons and fired at them, which they dodged, but one was about to hit Asia, who was fighting with some invaders that turned into saws. But Rem protects her with her power, and they continue to kill. Thus they reach the end but see nothing. Searches. "There's nothing here," he said as he saw that there was nothing left. "Imeko. Wait," she said while telling them to be quiet, which made them all quiet, and she listened. "Imeko. Do you hear that?" she said while searching for the source of the sound. Hineko and Karuka hear it and put their ear to the ground. "Hineko. There's something down here," she said while listening. Karuka hears it, but then she hears something louder. "Karuka. Look out, back off," she said as everyone backed away and saw giant scorpion-like invaders emerge from the ground and lunge towards them. Serapho launched a powerful ice attack that froze everyone, then clenched her fist, destroying them. Note. I couldn't find a picture of them, but those who played Metal Slug 6 will know who they are. Azazel. They came out of the earth, he said while looking at the large hole. Mecha. I heard something else, she said while listening to the chewing of an invader and seeing the hole. Mecha. We have to go down, she said as they nodded and used their power to begin descending to the surface. These went so deep underground that you could even feel a little warmth on the ground. Upon arriving, they saw invaders shaped like fish heads, and these were shooting bubbles that contained a purple liquid. So they destroy them, but they see several Martians from the Martian people in domes as prisoners, and they destroy them, freeing the Martians who then joined the fight. They advanced and saw an invader who could turn into a pink saw, and it began to spin and bounce around, killing some soldiers and demons. Thus Sirzechs destroys it, but it expels worms that explode upon contact. Thus they advance, killing the invaders and liberating the people of Mars. So they advance and reach another place where they now have to climb. As they advance, they see more invaders trying to stop them. They see the same invaders who have 2 cannons, but this one unleashes a larger attack from its eye. He then launches it towards the allied army, but Asia creates a spear of light and destroys the attack. Thus Asia, with the same spear, hurls it towards the invader's eye, killing him. Asia. I'll go first, she said as she took out her dragon wings and advanced upwards, killing the invaders who came out and attacked her. Mecha. Wait, she said, but Asia ignored her and continued on without them. So they advance and see a huge invader that had the shape of a fish head and from its mouth begins to launch various acids. Thus Azazel creates a trident of light and destroys the invader, but another one appears and also other invaders that could turn into saws. Sirzechs, with his power, destroys them, including the great invader, but they saw another one emerge. Mecha. How many are there? She said as she created an electric dragon and launched it, killing the great invader and the invaders who were coming out. Thus they advance and continue where they see more prisoners from Mars and free them where they are helped. They continued on and arrived at a place where there was nothing but a steppe. Isaka. There are no invaders, she said while looking around and seeing that there was nothing there. Then Yoshino looks up and sees many invaders that had the shape of crabs. Yoshino. Watch out. She said as she created ice spears and threw them at the falling invaders. These killed more angels, soldiers and fallen angels, and they restarted their attack. But Grayfia and Seraphil wouldn't let them and froze them all. But they didn't notice that other saw-like invaders were about to fall on Seraphil, but she didn't notice. Mecha. Watch out Seraphil, she said as she launched a beam to help her, but Sona threw ice stakes, killing the invaders that were about to fall on top of Seraphil. Seraphil. Thank you, Sotan, she said in a childish tone. And so they continue, and a magic circle appears in Akeno's ear. Asia. Girls, I found the entrance where the leader of the invaders is, she said in the magic circle. Akeno. Perfect, Asia-chan, wait until we arrive, she said as she continued on her way. Asia. Okay, wait, let me go, stop, no help Issei-san help me, she said, but the connection was cut off. Akeno. Asia damn it, she said while increasing her pace like the others. Thus they advanced and killed the invaders who tried to stop them. So they arrive and see many mind-controlling invaders surrounding something. So they approached, but saw someone come out of there and saw Asia, who had a parasite controlling her. She was trying to get rid of the parasite, but it was too late, as Asia began to launch spears of light towards her companions. Kaneko. Asia-senpai, she said worriedly while throwing non-lethal flames that could still damage her. Hiroka lunged towards Asia, but Asia punched her, sending her reeling backward, followed by a flurry of blows that Hiroka tried to defend herself against. Ross. Asia, react. He said while making magic circles from which chains emerged that restrained Asia, but she destroyed them with her armor. Asia lunges towards Ross, but Penemu kicks her, followed by Gabriel who throws her towards some rocks. Asia was about to throw a large spear, but she fell to the ground unconscious, and everyone saw a Fae, who had the parasite controlling her. Asia recovers and touches her head. Asia. What happened to my head? She said, confused. Akeno. A parasite controlled you. You were very impulsive to do that. She said while looking at her very seriously. Asia. I'm sorry, but she said as she began to cry, wanted to finish this quickly so I could help Issei-san. He must be having a hard time now that he's facing Lin, she said while she shed a few tears, but received a hug from all her harem companions. Kaneko. Okay, I want to help senpai too, but we can't if we do it like this, she said while looking at her. Akeno. We all want to help him, but for now we can only do that. Asia, what's the entrance like? She said while looking at her. Asia. It has a staircase-like path, but from what I saw, not everyone can enter because they would break the path, and they also can't launch an attack that could destroy everything, because that would cause everything to fall on top of us, she said seriously. Akeno, thank you Asia. You stay with the mass, we'll go in. She said while looking at her. Azazel. Are you sure about that? He said, looking at them. Isaka. Yes, Akeno, Kaneko, Kuroka, Lefei, Penemu, Gabriel, Ross, Seraphol, Sona, Tsubaki and I will enter, she said seriously. Searches. I understand, good luck, he said while looking at them. They nod and enter. Searches saw Asia, who looked frustrated, and said to her. Searches. You want to help Issei-kun, right? He said as she nodded. Searches. I'll send you to where he is. Your healing will be of great help. He said as Asia smiled broadly and nodded. Thus Searches made a magic circle and Asia disappeared. Arena. Excuse me, Mao Lucifer, but Alice, Ikumi, Hisako, and I want to help Issei too. She said while looking at him. Leona, Fiona and Clara. Us too, said Issei's girlfriends. All the protagonists' harems wanted to help their boyfriends, or in the case of Shido's harem, Tadano and Futaro, who were deceased. Azazel receives a call and summons a magic circle where Naoto's voice can be heard. Naoto. Azazel-sensei, Lisa has been defeated. Now we're rushing to help Issei from Lin. He said seriously. Azazel. Perfect, but how did it go? He said while only hearing silence, and Naoto, without joking, said. Naoto. Sadly, Ryo and Shido died. He said humorlessly. Upon hearing that her boyfriend had died, Midler fainted, unable to believe it. Shido's harem kept hearing over and over that Shido had died, and they fell to their knees in disbelief. Alice could only shed tears of sadness as she couldn't believe she had lost a great friend from the kitchen. Origami. Take us to where Lin is. He said while looking at Searches very seriously. Searches. Are you safe? He said, looking at Shido's harem where none of them had a sparkle in their eyes anymore and were only shedding tears. Toka. If we couldn't help him, at least we can avenge him. She said as her classic smile disappeared, now replaced by a cold and serious expression. Searches said nothing and sent all the girls to where the boys were fighting. Azazel. Well, Naoto, go to where Issei is fighting and help him turn the tide of their battle. He said seriously. Naoto just says yes and they cut off communication. But Akeno. The aforementioned woman was seen along with the others climbing the place, noticing that the path resembled human skin and even felt like it. So they climbed and reached the top, and when they saw the end, they looked up and saw that there was the leader of the invaders of Venus in a dome of an unknown liquid. Isaka. Well girls, let's not waste any time, she said while creating flames in her hands. Thus, with their attacks, they launched them towards the dome where it suffered damage from the attacks and began to break. But they saw invaders arrive who could turn into saws, but Sona destroyed them. However, these invaders launched exploding worms, but Lefei destroyed them. So they continued until they saw the dome destroyed and saw the leader of the invaders of Venus dead. They saw him and he seemed to have no signs of life, but then his eyes glowed and Yusaka and Seraphol created a magic circle shield, but that wasn't enough to prevent the ground from being destroyed, and they all fell. Upon seeing how they fell, they saw the leader of the invaders of Venus, or better known as the Queen of Venus. Thus, the Queen of Venus began to launch several energy attacks from her mouth, which the girls found difficult because she launched them very quickly and they were also very difficult to dodge. So the girls shoot them where they noticed their weak point was their face and they begin to shoot mercilessly. Thus they launched attacks, but the Queen of Venus destroyed the floor where they fell onto another floor and so the attack continued. The girls were already tired, but the most tired were Akeno, Seraphol, Yusaka, and Gabriel. Kaneko lunges at the Queen of Venus and punches her in the face, followed by Kuroka, who launches a fire attack that burns her entire face, causing her to lose her grip on her arms and begin to fall. The girls tried to unfurl their wings, but the Queen of Venus illuminated her eyes, and they all felt their powers blocked, surprising them, and they began to fall. All. Kiai. They fell towards the abyss where the Queen of Venus tried to grab onto something, but it was impossible. The Queen of Venus began launching several energy attacks, which the girls dodged as best they could, but they couldn't prevent some of them from hitting them. Kuroka hugged Kaneko, and Kaneko used herself as a human shield to protect Lefei and Kaneko. The Kendo was also used as a human shield to protect Yusaka, who was very tired from all the effort she had made. Penemu and Ross were also used as human shields to protect Gabriel and Tsubaki. Sona was protecting Seraphol from the attacks, where Seraphol tried to be a human shield, but exhaustion and injuries prevented her from doing so. Finally, they found a place to grab hold, and Kaneko, Tsubaki, Lefei, Gabriel, and Seraphol held on and caught the injured ones before they fell. They saw the Queen of Venus fall into the void, where she screamed and fell. Kaneko. We did it. She said, but saw a huge explosion approaching them, and there was little they could do. All. They all screamed as they couldn't take it anymore and let go. Everything looked white. When it was over, there was a huge crater and enormous damage caused by the explosion. But there was no sign of any of the girls. With Rias. She, like Ravel, couldn't believe who had saved them. This quickly renders Itsuki unconscious. Rias. Hey, what are you doing? She said while looking at the aforementioned unconscious woman. Wow, it's been a long time since I've seen you, Rias. When was the last time I saw you? I remember now, it was the day you were executed for being unfaithful to my brother Issei. He said while looking at her. Both girls couldn't believe it as they looked at the one who had saved them and he knew what they had done in the past. Rias. What are you talking about? Lincoln, she said seriously but looked very scared, as did Ravel. Chapter 124 Hellfight. Issei's son. He saw his friends who came to his aid, where Lin looked at them all with disdain. Lin. They're going to try to stop me, but before they know it I'm going to kill them. Let this hell begin. She said while summoning many tentacles that headed towards the boys. Naoto used his saws to cut the emerging tentacles and then summoned chains that headed towards Lin, who destroyed them with her arms. Lini. Aztec breathing third form, Eclipse, she said as the place went dark for a few moments and when the light returned Lin was seen without arms. Issei. Take this. He said while powering up his powers a lot and punched her, sending her flying, but Lin grabbed him by the waist with her tentacles and slammed him to the ground. Ryota took her by surprise and began dragging her across the ground. Lin tried to get him off her, but Ryota's strength was too great. So Lin, with all her strength, managed to get him off her and began to bite him. Ryota saw a bite and realized that her bites looked like those of a wild animal. Saji grabbed her by the neck with his Vitra rope and pulled her closer to him. Saji. Blood technique. Glory kick X50, he said as he delivered a powerful kick that broke his bones and some muscles. But Lin regenerates and headbutts him, sending him crashing to another spot. Lin felt a kick in her ribs, seeing Seryerg who was wearing his lion armor, but Lin grabbed him and punched him, destroying his armor. Albrian. Divide divide divide, he said while trying to divide Lin's power but she was on another level, Volley's division was useless. Lin. How pathetic you are, she said as tentacles approached Volley, who was pierced in several parts of his body. Volley. Ai, he screamed as he fell to the ground with his armor destroyed. Lin. You know I already won, right? My blood is so poisonous that it causes severe pain when it touches the skin. Look. She said as she launched some very sharp tentacles at great speed, hitting Issei, who lost his left eye. Drag. Issei, he said worriedly as he saw how everyone who was stained by Lin's blood was equally affected. Lini. Shit, she said as her veins throbbed, as if they might explode at any moment. Lini noticed that the others were also having a hard time as they watched them resist Lin's poison. Lin. How useless it is to resist, my blood is a deadly poison, she said with an arrogant smile. Lini. Ice breathing, first form, winter, she said as a cloud of ice appeared all around. The boys felt better as they breathed in the cloud since Lin's poison was destroyed by Lini's ice. Lin. You brainless bitch. She said while launching many tentacles towards Lini. Naoto arrived and cut off Lin's tentacles and Lini says. Lini. Beast breath fifth fang, tear and devour, she said while launching many slashes along with Naoto, leaving many severed tentacles on the ground. Saji. It's useless, whatever we do, we can't do anything to him, he said while throwing a barrage of punches, but Lin almost pierced him with a punch that had several fangs. Lini. That's right, so use this, she said while throwing several papers that had the Irachi symbol on them. Ryota. What's that? He said while holding a piece of paper. Lini. I not only practiced with the katana, but I also learned magic, she said while the boys were suspicious, especially Ryota since he was the one who killed her, so having no other choice they take them and put them on their heads. They saw Lin and were surprised because Lin had 7 brains and 18 hearts. Ryota. Amazing, he said while watching those organs move very quickly inside her so as not to be hurt. Thus they launched themselves towards Lin who was ready for the counterattack. Issei was unconscious after taking the full force of Lin's attack that took his eye and he looked at the area where he lost his eye, which was swollen with a large piece of flesh and no trace of his lost eye. Drag. Partner, wake up, he said while trying to wake Issei. While fighting, Lin saw a large magic circle where she saw Clyde, Rusty, and Liam. Clyde. Sorry we're late, he said as he threw his medieval ball towards Lin who dodged it but felt a cut where he saw Rusty cut his hand. Rusty. Did you miss us, bitch? He said while throwing another slash at Lin. Lin didn't believe it, but she felt 2 explosions and saw Liam, who had 2 katanas. Liam. The rock god is back, he said while giving Lin several cuts, who tried to defend herself, but Ryota kicked him, sending him flying. Saji. Guys, is that you? He said, surprised. Clyde. Of course, it's a pleasure to see you all, he said with a smile. Naoto. If you're alive, that means, he said, but his brain rebooted because he knew who had returned. Ryota. They're still the 11-year-old boys I knew, he said while looking at them and seeing that they were still that age. Clyde. Well, we couldn't be the age we were supposed to be, so we're still 11-year-olds. He said as he watched Lin compose herself. Lin. Damn them, I killed them, I tortured them, how many times do I have to kill them? She said while furious at seeing them like that, she launches many tentacles at high speed. Elsewhere. Issei was still unconscious when they saw a magic circle from which the boys' harem emerged, where they saw Issei unconscious and the others fighting. Asia. Issei-san, she said worriedly as she began to heal Issei's eye injury. But the healing was minimal, as it only stopped the bleeding and the poison, but the wound remained. Arena. Zenobia, let's go, we have to help, she said as Zenobia nodded and went to help in the battle. The others do the same and rush towards Lin. Elsewhere. The enormous hole made by the Queen of Venus when she exploded was visible in the nest of the invaders of Venus. But there was no sign of the girls, but then they saw a ship from the people of Mars where the girls were. Bekeno. We're alive, she said while looking down at the ship. Serafal. So tan, she said while hugging Sona who was looking at the ship. Kaneko. Who saved us? She said as she saw two boys she hadn't seen in a long time on the top of the ship. Well, so you're Issei's girlfriends, well, so his dream came true, she said while looking at a tall brunette. How beautiful, if they were single I would do the impossible to have them, but I respect, he said while looking at a red-haired dwarf. Isaka. You're Stella and Zach, she said as they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Elsewhere. Rias and Ravel were seen looking at Lincoln in a frightened way, since he knew their secret. Rias. Listen, I know we did something unforgivable, but we're truly sorry for that damn mistake, she said while on her knees. Ravel. It's true, even we have already given ourselves to Issei body and soul, so forgive us, she said while on her knees and began to cry as did Rias. Lincoln only had a serious expression, but he gave a smile. Lincoln. I already know that, tell me why you think you went back to the past, he said while looking at them. Rias. I have no idea, she said sincerely, just like Ravel. Lincoln. Because I was responsible for bringing them back to the past with their memories, he said very seriously, something that both of them couldn't believe, that Lincoln was responsible for bringing them back to the past. Chapter 125 Understanding Hell 18. Rias and Ravel couldn't believe it. Lincoln was responsible for bringing them to the past. They couldn't believe it. Rias. I know it's too late, but why did you bring us back to the past? She said while looking at him. Ravel. You could have easily left us to our fate and Issei would have been taken in by Roberto-sama and Great Red Sama, so why, she said while looking at him. Lincoln. I showed them mercy. Unlike everyone else who turned their backs on them, I understood them. I was angry that they were unfaithful to Issei, but I was able to understand them. He said seriously. Flashback. After Issei's girls went to prison level 8, Lincoln saw the hell they suffered. Kuroka. Please guys forgive us, she said while being hit by volley and ardor. Iku was beating up LeFay, who was crying and begging for forgiveness. In the end, they left, leaving a badly beaten LeFay and Kuroka behind as they hugged each other. Lincoln had a serious expression when he saw them, and even more so when several demons entered and began to grape them, while they were powerless to do anything. Demon. Damn, this cat in Heat's vagina is incredible, he said while he had Kuroka on the ground and penetrated her mercilessly. EMON2. Also the mouth of this boar mage, he said while forcing LeFay to give him a blowjob. After they were graped, they had a satisfied smile on their faces, leaving LeFay and Kuroka crying while hugging each other. At that moment, Kuroka pulls a photo of Issei and her on their first date out of her pillow. Kuroka. Forgive me, Issei Naya, she said while hugging the photo as if her life depended on it. LeFay also takes a picture of herself with Issei in his armor and hugs her with all her might. LeFay. Forgive me, Issei-sama, I was stupid, she said while crying uncontrollably. Lincoln saw this and felt sorry for them, so he disappeared into another cell. He saw Asia, Irina and Zenobia being the semen receptacles for several fallen angels. Fallen angel. This bitch's vagina feels great, he said while penetrating Irina's vagina. Fallen angel 2. Her ass too, he said while a scene was shown in which Irina was penetrated through her vagina and ass. Irina kept telling them to stop, but they turned a deaf ear and continued to dominate Irina. Zenobia and Asia had a double dildo where their vaginas were penetrated at the same time. Fallen Angel 3. This bitch's ass is incredible, he said while penetrating Asia's anus. Fallen Angel 4. Even the brainless bitch is no slouch, he said while penetrating her anally. Thus the orgy continued, with the women changing positions, and none of the three women were left alone during the Hexwell act. Thus the fallen angels depart, leaving the three believers from the church in their cell. So they take out a cross made from Arena's feathers and the blood of both of them, and they take out 3 photos of Issei. Asia. Issei-san, please forgive me for what I did, she said while looking at a picture of her and Issei on a date. Zenovia. Forgive me Issei, I only hope to meet you again, I no longer care about dying, she said while looking at her picture with Issei in an amusement park. Arena. Issei-kun, forgive me, your angel failed you, she said while looking at a picture of herself with Issei on a date. So the 3 of them began to pray, each suffering from a terrible headache, but they didn't care much about it. Despite the pain, they continued until they finished and then fell unconscious. Lincoln had a look of compassion for them as he arrived at the other cell where he saw Kaneko and Ravel tied up in chains, while several Aztecs held them as hex slaves. AZTCA1. Wow, I didn't think this cat in heat would be so good, he said while penetrating Kaneko's anus while she screamed and begged him to stop. Razor. I never thought this bitch would be so good, he said while penetrating Ravel's anus while she begged him to stop, which never happened. AZTCA1. Does this sound like a change to you? He said while Razor accepted and they switched partners where both abused both lawless. After a while, they removed their chains and left them on the ground covered in semen. Both of them stood up and took 2 photos of Issei from their hiding place. Kaneko. Issei-senpai please forgive me, she said while crying while holding a picture of Issei with her where she was sleeping in his lap. Ravel. Issei-sama, forgive me, it's not that I want your forgiveness, who am I kidding, Issei-sama. Forgive me for being stupid. She said while looking at a picture of herself with Issei at a high-class ball. Lincoln just looked at them and moved on to the next one. They saw Akeno and Ross, both dressed in maid outfits, being penetrated while using a double dildo in their vaginas. Demon. This is your punishment for being unfaithful to the Sekiryuutei, he said while penetrating Akeno harder. Demon 2. If Issei-sama were alive, he would be ashamed to have such slutty women, he said while penetrating Ross harder. Thus, both demons forced them to share a lesbian kiss, where they were both overcome by excitement and used them until they were satisfied. So after a while they leave, leaving Amba in her cell. Akeno then pulls a photo of Issei with her out of hiding. Akeno. Issei-kun, you accepted me no matter what, and how can I repay you? I hope I die so I can be your loyal bitch for all eternity. She said while crying and hugging his picture. Ross. Issei-kun, I don't know what I was thinking. I left you, and this was the price. Please forgive me. She said while crying, hugging her photo with Issei. Lincoln felt more sorry for the girls and went to another cell. There he saw several demons, including a row where he saw Gabriel and Penemu being used as hex toys by many demons. Demon 1. Gabriel-sama, you have no idea how many times I've jerked off thinking about you, thank you for making my dream come true, he said while penetrating Gabriel's vagina. Some demons used Gabriel's hair for masturbation, and in another instance, Penemu was the bore of all demons, as no hole went unserved. So, after hours, Gabriel and Penemu were seen covered in semen, and they cleaned themselves up as best they could and took 2 photos of Issei out of their hiding place. Gabriel. Issei-kun, forgive me, father, if you hear me, please take care of Issei-kun, he said while hugging the photo with all his pain. Penemu. Issei-kun, I was stupid. Azazel was right, I'm a nobody. She said while hugging the photo. Lincoln saw this and went to the next cell. Thus he saw Office being the plaything of several dragons. Dragon. Now who's the low-class boar dragon? He said while penetrating her vagina. The RAGON2. Look, remember when you humiliated us? Now who's being humiliated? He said while penetrating her anus. Office showed no emotion, so both dragons, to further torture her, transformed into dragons and mercilessly penetrated her with their large members, leaving her on the brink of death. Thus, both dragons left Office with no light in her eyes. Office takes out a photo of herself with Issei and she cries while hugging the picture. Office. Alpha, forgive me, she said while hugging her photo. Lincoln felt sorry for her and followed her to the last cell. There he saw Rias Gremory, the most tortured person of all. Right now he was the hexual object of 25% of the prison guards. This was used as a semen container where she was even graped for days. So when all the guards were finished, they left Rias, who crushed her stomach, which was 8 months pregnant. A large amount of semen came out of her vagina and anus, where it further compressed her stomach. When she was sure it was all out, she walked with difficulty to a place and took out a picture of herself with Issei on their first date. Rias. Issei, I was stupid, please forgive me, she said while crying, hugging the photo of Issei with her. Lincoln just stared at this and felt a regret, but one that was truly real. Lincoln had doubts and continued watching where the girls had no day off, from being beaten by guards to being hexual objects. Thus Lincoln witnessed the day they were all executed and heard Ria's last words before she died. Rias. Just kill me so I can be with Issei, she said as Roberto cut off her head. Lincoln just watched this and took the souls of all the girls. Some time later. Then came the awakening of Sirzechs and the destruction of the world and the supernatural world. Lincoln Roberto-sama and Gran Rojo-sama are casting their spell to return to the past, he said as Lincoln nodded. Lincoln. Girls, I hope you do things right now that you have another chance, he said while looking at the girls' souls. Everything shone, and Lincoln saw that he was in darkness and that he was in nothingness, but he couldn't remember anything. But then she remembered everything and smiled. Lincoln. Good luck, girls. He said as he realized he was in the middle of nowhere. Later, the girl who was with her arrived and they both watched the girl's progress. The girl wasn't entirely convinced by Lincoln's decision, but they watched everything anyway, and she told Lincoln that if any of the girls were unfaithful to him, she would kill them all, regardless of whether the others were faithful or not. But she was greatly surprised to see that they were all very loyal to Issei. She even blushed when she saw how Issei made them his own. So the girl agreed with Lincoln and left him in limbo, and that's when the Louds incident happened, bringing Lincoln back to life. Vindel flashback. Lincoln. And that's how it happened, he said while looking at them. Lincoln. I put myself in their shoes and yes, I understood their pain since I suffered the same thing, so I thought I'd give them this opportunity to do things right, he said as they both approached him. Without thinking, they both hugged him, while Lincoln blushed as he felt their breasts against his face. Rias, thank you, Lincoln, she said while hugging Lincoln. Ravel. Thank you so much, Lincoln, for giving us this opportunity, she said while hugging him, but she couldn't stop crying tears of joy, just like Rias. So they continued on their way and separated, with Lincoln taking them along with an unconscious Atsuki, towards where Issei and the others were fighting. Chapter 126 Adoption. With the boys. They watched as the girls arrived to help them while Asia healed an unconscious Issei. Lin Jr. More obstacles, I won't let them get in the way of this fight, so entertain yourselves with them, he said while snapping his fingers, and some magic circles appeared from which strange beings emerged. Lin Jr. I present to you the latest beings Lisa created, they are Daki and Hyoudou, he said while both brothers looked at everyone with an arrogant smile. Daki. How lovely, there'll be a great feast for me, she said as yukata covers appeared from her back. Hyoudou. Those clothes are very nice, I bet they don't have to worry about food or shelter. I envy them. He said while scratching himself, but the wound regenerates. Lin Jr. He is Jayako, a great lover of art, she said while they looked at a vase, but a being appeared that she didn't know what it was. Jayako. Before I die by my own hands, my name is Jayako, and I want to show you my last sculpture, she said as a vase appeared and several figures emerged. Humans, demons, angels and fallen angels. Jayako. I present to you the union of four worlds, he said while everyone was shocked to see such a human abomination. Jayako. Look at those demon wings and those fallen angel wings, and as the cherry on top, those white wings covered in blood, he said with a smile while everyone was terrified. Jayako. And look at this sword, I'll just move it like this, and, he said while turning a sword that was buried in the mutilated bodies, and all the bodies begin to scream while their eyes, nose and mouth begin to bleed. Everyone was looking at Jayako with anger, especially Arena, since this was unforgivable. Lin. Now I present to you the innocent Hantengu, she said while looking at an old dwarf while trembling at the sight of everyone. Hantengu. Please don't hurt me, he said as he began to cry, but Kuroka and Kaneko could smell the scent of blood coming from the old man. Lin. I'd like to introduce you to Akaza, she said while he looked uncomfortable seeing so many girls. Akaza. Lin-sama, if you'll allow me, could I fight with just the men? He said while bowing. Lin. Oh, right, I forgot to mention that Akaza doesn't like to fight or devour women, so he'll fight by my side. She said while Saji and the others showed some respect towards Akaza. Lin. I'd like to introduce you to Dauma, the one I liked best, she said while giving Dauma a smile. Dauma. Please Lin-sama don't say that, but yes, and look at this, a grand banquet of beauties, it will be very delicious to eat them all, I'm sure they all have an exquisite flavor, he said with a sweet smile. Komi and Kawai noticed something, as did Najimi, since this guy had no emotions, especially after noticing that fake smile. Lin. And finally, I present to you Kakishibo, the strongest of them all, she said while he said nothing and had a serious expression. Zenobia saw Kakishibo and she got into a fighting stance. Asia was still healing Issei, who showed no signs of his wound healing. Lini. Damn, it's still 2 hours until dawn, she said seriously while looking at Lin. Lin. Okay guys, let's attack with everything. She said as everyone charged towards the girls and boys who got into fighting stances and launched themselves at Lisa's experiments. With Lincoln, Rias and Ravel. Lincoln. We have to help Issei, he said as he began to heal Kuoh. Rias. Why are you helping that crazy woman's dog? She said while looking at him. Lincoln. Charles, don't you remember me? he said while Kuoh just growled and barked at him. Lincoln. Don't you remember our times together, buddy? Charles, don't you remember when I met you guys, when I found you, when you defended me from Lana? He said as Kuoh opened his eyes and remembered something. Flashback. There was a 1-month-old puppy, a baby cat that could barely drink milk, a little bird with an injured wing, and a gangster inside a plastic ball with a tiny ball of stale bread. So the dog saw a door open and saw a cook throwing some things away, so he went back in. The dog saw a dead chicken leg, but it was still usable. He took it and began to eat, but only took one bite and gave the rest to the cat and the little bird, who ate it too. So the rain soon arrived and the 4 animals went into a cardboard box to protect themselves from the rain. But the cardboard box was destroyed by the rain, so the dog hugged the cat and the little bird, who were shivering from the cold, just like the gangster. They stayed like that all night, embraced, while the rain fell on them. The next day, the 4 animals were seen waking up and went to the park hoping to be adopted. So they arrived and watched as some children arrived at the park, but no one looked at them. So they tried to show that they could be special, but no one paid them any attention. The 4 animals lowered their heads and left, but the dog was hit by a ball that left him on the ground. The dog gets to its feet, but then they are caught in a butterfly net and were about to be taken to the pound, but someone interrupts the animal control officer. Lincoln, 5 years old. Wait, they're my animals. He said while looking at the man. I don't think so, kid. Tell me their names. He said while Lincoln was thinking. Lincoln. Well, the dog's name is Charles, the cat's name is Cliff, the little bird's name is Walt, and the gangster's name is Geo. He said while giving a nervous smile. Kid, even you don't believe that lie, but you know what? My shift's over and I have a special dinner with my wife, so now they're your problem. He said while handing the 4 animals to Lincoln, who was holding them in his arms. The 4 animals were in Lincoln's arms and felt his warmth, his gentle heat, and a warmth that gave them peace. So the guy leaves Lincoln with the animals. Lincoln. Well guys, good luck finding an owner for yourselves. He said with a smile as he went to his mother, who didn't notice what happened. Thus the 4 animals see each other and nod their heads. That's how the dog tracked Lincoln's scent with his sense of smell, and they arrived at the loud house. They looked for a way in and luckily the back door was ajar, so they went in and looked for Lincoln. They found Lincoln's room and approached, knocking on the door. Lincoln opened it and was surprised to see them. Lincoln. Hello puppy, kitten, and you little bird, and you too, little one, he said while picking up the 4 animals. The dog licked Lincoln's face, who was laughing, and the cat purred as it lay on Lincoln's shoulder. The bird lands on Lincoln's shoulder and rests its head on Lincoln's neck. Lincoln smiled and quietly went to the bathroom and bathed the 4 animals who were enjoying a warm bath for the first time in their lives. So he dried them with his towel and took them to his room. Lincoln. How will I convince my parents to have them, he said while little Lincoln thought about his idea. So he let the 4 animals sleep in his bed, where they slept very comfortably. That day they slept without worrying about the rain or the cold, where the 4 of them had decided who their master was. The next day, Lincoln convinced his parents to get the pets now known as Charles, Cliff, Walt, and Geo. This is how the 4 animals looked sleeping in the bed that the loud parents bought for them. So one by one they stand up and go to Lincoln's room and see Lincoln somewhat uncovered. So the animals covered Lincoln, who opened his eyes a little and smiled, and let the 4 animals sleep with him. Later, the animals had great respect and appreciation for Lincoln, and later for Lana, but Lincoln had the greatest respect. That's how the bad luck thing came about, and they helped Lincoln by stealing food from the refrigerator or stealing the Loud's leftovers. Lincoln smiled as his animals approached him and slept beside him. After that, the Louds found out what the animals were doing and took them to live with a distant relative. But the animals managed to escape and quickly headed towards the Loud house. Upon arriving, they saw Lana hitting Lincoln with a wrench and they could hear their master's screams. The animals didn't think twice and lunged at Lana, who wasn't expecting that. Charles was biting Lana's leg, Cliff was scratching Lana's face, Walt was pecking at her eyes with his beak, and Geo got inside Lana's clothes and was biting parts of her skin. The Louds, hearing Lana's screams, saw the animals and, with some effort, subdued them all and helped Lana, who was screaming and crying in pain. In the end, Lisa sacrificed them and killed all 4 of them, their last memories being of living alongside Lincoln and remembering their best moments. Vindel flashback. Kuoh, who was actually Charles, was crying as he approached Lincoln, who then jumped towards him and licked his face with great happiness. Ravel. So he's Charles, he said while looking at him. Lincoln. That's why I was late. I discovered Lisa's lab and found Cliff, Waff, and Geo, but I couldn't find Charles. So I looked around and saw that he'd been paired with that crazy woman. He said while carrying Charles. Rias. And the other animals also had that condition, she said, looking at him. Lincoln. Yes, in fact I have them here, he said, making a magic circle where a cage appeared containing the other animals. Charles was so happy to see his friends that he barked with joy. Lincoln. We have to go and help Issei, he said as he took the 3 girls and they left. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.